we will go ahead and get started tonight. So I will call this meeting to order. Good evening, and thank you everybody for joining us. Today is Tuesday, December 15th, and we welcome all of our school board members, Dr. Miguel and her cabinet, and the rest of our staff for joining us tonight. And also any guests, community members watching tonight, thank you for joining us tonight. We will go ahead and get started with our meeting. Before I do, I will read our board norms and protocols as we do at every board meeting, just as a reminder for our board, that we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So with that, I would ask Ms. Smith to go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, present.
And Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, present.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I would now take a motion to approve tonight's regular agenda.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, discussion? Not Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. So now we come to one of my favorite times of the meeting. So I will kick it off to Dr. Miguel.
Thank you so much. And I would like to invite Ms. Jody Mitchell to present the Employee of the Month recognition.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm here to talk about our December Employees of the Month. We have multiple employees again this month, and we have both of them are instrumental music teachers at Carl B. Bruce, Ann Neal and Colleen Meyer. And the nomination came from our assistant principal, Sean Demery. So these two ladies have been nominated because they are currently working, obviously, remotely. And they both know that the students are missing out on experiences, that you truly can only get when you're in person in schools. And so the two ladies have kind of brainstormed together and come up with packets for the students, which included some homemade stringed instruments made out of swimming pool noodles and PVC pipe. And so they were then able to create instruments for the children and send those to their homes, and then able to engage the children and give them a sense of what it would be like if they were in-person learning. So great nominations, and just great examples of how our teachers are using innovation to shift from a very difficult situation to provide positive opportunity for our students. So congratulations, both of you.
Thank you so much, Jody. We appreciate all that, and congratulations to the teacher. Very much appreciated. All the hard work that you're doing. And now we have Student of the Month, which is another very happy occasion. So I would like to invite Mr. Linkus to share with us the Student of the Month.
So good evening, Board President Lopez, Madam Vice President, members of the board. To deal with my technical challenges, I've come with the plan B, so that way we can get the pictures up there and they're a lot easier to see, and we'll be able to scroll and see all of our great students who are being honored this month. So our ECE honoree is from the KCK Early Childhood Center, and that is Kai Johnson. And outside of having a smile that we are all envious of, and a lot of happiness. Kai has perfect attendance, is learning his colors, numbers, and shapes, and is a great role model to the other students at the KCKECC. So we want to congratulate Kai and the Johnson family on this award. So our second student that we're going to be more than happy to honor is from Eugene Ware and is a second grader, and it is Corbin Garcia. Corbin's teacher stated that she knew that Corbin had some issues in math initially. But the great thing with Corbin, besides also having a great smile, and I love Star Wars, so seeing the Stormtrooper is always great to see as well, is that he has turned that trigger of math into something where he's making progress in all academic areas according to his teacher. So we want to send a shout out to Corbin and his family, and thank you for all the great work that you're doing at Eugene Ware. So if you just bear with me for a second, make life easy on myself. So then we'll get to our middle and high school students. So our middle school student is from Rosedale Middle School, and that is Mauricio Tiznado. Mauricio is a delight to have in class. He is known for translating for students who aren't as proficient in the English language, and submitted this picture specifically to promote safety in the time of COVID and having his mask on. So Mauricio and his families, congratulations to you. And we're very happy for you to get this award. Our last nominee is Mosiah Taylor. And Mosiah is a 10th grader at FL Schlegel. I know we got a number of Schlegel alums on the Zoom today, so they'll be excited to hear that. And Mosiah is a thinker, a doer, a cultivator, and has an inquiring mind that makes Mosiah a natural leader. So Mosiah, congratulations to you and your family, and Board of Education and Dr. Miguel. We would just like to celebrate all of our students of the month. And we just want to send a shout out from our end. And hey, we got to do it twice this month, so we had double the fun. So thank you guys for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Linkus, and congratulations to all 4 students and to the teachers who nominated them. We love to hear the good stories of the great work our students are doing. Thank you so much.
And yes, thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Mr. Linkus. And congratulations to all those students. Definitely a beautiful smile from Kai. I wish I had one like that too. So congratulations to you and your families. Looking forward to great things from all of you. So we will continue with our agenda, and we are at the community comment section of our agenda. Before we get to them all, just some quick reminder, please, if you have a community comment, please submit by 12 o'clock noon on the Monday before the board meeting to make sure that those get acknowledged in the board meeting itself. So before we read the comments, I do just want to make a quick note. We had several comments come in for this meeting. They are all publicly available on the agenda, so you can read and go through all the comments. We had over 20 comments, all pertaining to the same topic. So in accordance to board policy BCBI, we are grouping some of those instead of reading each one of them. But again, you have access to read all of the comments yourselves. 19 of those were almost identical and very similar in nature. So we just want to acknowledge that we did receive all of those, and they are publicly available for you to review. But I will ask Ms. Smith to read a few of them, again, in accordance to board policy BCBI. Thank you.
Dear USD 500 school board members, I'm writing to ask you to support the adoption of a safe and welcoming ordinance in Wyandotte County in order to build a safer neighborhood for our students and families in Rosedale and in all of USD 500. As you are no doubt aware, many KCK residents face barriers in daily life due to not having a government-issued ID. One example RDA frequently encounters is for participants in our summer youth employment program, which places youth age 14 to 17 at a Rosedale business for their first summer job. The youth participants usually do not have bank accounts or state-issued IDs. RDA has worked with our bank in Rosedale for many years to make it possible for youth to cash their paychecks or to sign their checks over to their parents using their student IDs. This relatively simple fix allows our youth to benefit from the job training and income that the program offers, and also demonstrates the ability of communities to work together with institutions like banks to make an alternative ID program workable. The municipal ID program, if thoughtful, implemented in partnership with Wyandotte County institutions, can make extremely useful services like check cashing available to all of our residents. Second, Rosedale saw a steady drop in both violent crime and property crime over the last 5 years up until early 2020. That trend was due in large part to Rosedale families working closely with each other and the KCK Police Department, particularly community policing. Community policing officers attend most neighborhood group meetings and keep neighborhoods leaders informed. And Rosedalians are diligent about communicating with the police department to make the neighborhood safer. That communication depended on trust between Rosedalians and law enforcement, trust that is regularly challenged by national news of deportations and violent conflicts between police and residents. Now, in the wake of a sudden increase in violent crime in Rosedale over these last several months, it is more important than ever that residents feel safe working with each other and with community policing to prevent violent crime. Students and their families need and deserve assurance that their information will not be shared with a federal agency and that their city will not comply with attempts to deport undocumented community members. The safety of our whole community depends on it. I also want to take off my RDA hat for a moment and speak as a parent and a community member. As a foster and adoptive parent for the last 8 years, I have seen my children who have graduated from USD 500 and many of their classmates struggle to maintain adequate documentation while dealing with many barriers to daily life caused by childhood trauma, particularly the sudden disruption to jobs and housing that so often come with mental illness. A library card or a gym membership may seem like a small thing, but to many, they represent a lifeline in the midst of trauma and chaos. By offering an alternative form of ID, the safe and welcoming ordinance will make day-to-day functioning just a little bit easier for Wyandotte County residents who are struggling for all kinds of reasons, and help remove one of the barriers people face in getting back on their feet after a setback. The safe and welcoming ordinance will make it possible for KCK students and families to get and stay on track. I hope you will consider supporting the ordinance and helping build a community where all students can thrive. Thank you, Aaron Stryker, Executive Director, Rosedale Development Association. Hello, Ms. Smith. On behalf of Moores 2 Immigration Task Force, a group of community leaders from Kansas City working with the Metro Organization for Racial and Economic Inequity, Carla Juarez and myself, Hannah Hostetler, are submitting the statement below to read at the next school board meeting on December 15th. To the Kansas board members, we, the Immigration Task Force of the Metro Organization for Racial and Economic Equity, are asking that you publicly support the safe and welcoming Wyandotte proposal in its entirety. The ordinance includes 2 parts: a municipal ID for everyone living in Wyandotte County that can be used to prove a person's identity to access services, and the support of local law enforcement in focusing on community safety, instead of being diverted into enforcing federal immigration laws. This ICE non-compliance resolution affirms that the local law enforcement will not take on frontline immigration enforcement. As many as 30,000 people in Wyandotte County, 1 in 5 people who live in the county may have difficulty accessing a government-issued ID. As school board members, you deserve a diverse community working with over 23,500 students. By publicly supporting this ordinance, you will automatically make USD 500 parents and students feel safe and welcome, and students feel safe and welcome while making sure that everyone is treated with dignity and fairness. Your support of this proposal as an institution is powerful. Just as a school board from 2011 openly supported the diversity of students and their families by instituting policies and practices that ensure the safety of the students in school. We are asking you to expand your support to the entirety of the Wyandotte County, protecting students and their family, not only in school, but in their homes and community as well. Thank you for considering Hannah Hostetler and Carla Juarez, More 2 Immigration Task Force. And our last comment. Hold on just a second. Dear President Lopez and KCKPS School Board, as NEA, KCK, and organizations supporting the educators and students of the USD 500, we write today to express support for the Safe and Welcoming Ordinance and its municipal ID program and ask that you make a similar endorsement. Creating this ordinance would ensure that Wyandotte County is even safer and more welcoming place to call home for our students and family. NEA KCK is a labor union that advocates for education professionals in Kansas City, Kansas, and seeks to prepare all students to succeed in a diverse and interdependent world. Further, as educator members, we believe public education is vital to building respect for the worth, dignity, and equality of every individual in our diverse society. When students and families feel safe, we see more participation in the educational process, including better attendance at conferences and more responsiveness to phone calls. This is why safe and welcoming is so important to us. Further, we believe all Wyandotte County residents are entitled to the dignity that a community ID can provide. This allows caregivers of students and our students themselves to engage more fully with schools and teachers. NEA KCK strongly believes that the best way to assist nearly 30,000 Wyandotte County residents who struggle with photo ID challenges is by creating a community ID card with protections. Community ID cards do not grant any new benefits or services. They simply make it possible for the city's residents to access benefits and services to which they are already legally entitled. Importantly, one of the essential services is access to schools. Additionally, Safe and Welcoming Wyandotte bars police from doing federal immigration enforcement on behalf of ICE, which further ensures the safety of our families. Police exist to serve and protect our community and enforce local laws. Through this ordinance, we can empower the Wyandotte County's diverse population to use these resources, stimulate local businesses, cooperate with law enforcement, and show that we welcome people of all backgrounds. We support this important policy and its strong protections because improving the quality of life for Wyandotte residents improves the educational attainment of Wyandotte students, creating a virtuous cycle that benefits all of us inside our schools and now into the future. We urge the KCKPS School Board to endorse Safe and Welcoming Wyandotte. Should you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to contact us. Respectfully, Michael Rebney, NEA KCK Social Justice Committee Chair, Dom DeRosa, NEA KCK President, and the NEA KCK Executive Board.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, for reading those comments, and thank you to all who submitted comments. We will now continue on with our agenda and come to the communications section. Dr. Miguel.
Thank you so much. We have several things to share, but as usual, I like it better when you hear directly from people in the community and in our schools. So we have two principals with us today. We had some discussion the last time we met about wraparound services for our students. So I wanted these principals to share how they are supporting students and families during remote learning. We have Ms. Samia Guess from Gloria Willis and Ms. Mary Stewart from Wyandotte High School. So if they are ready, I would like them to share with you, Ms. Guess.
You're on mute, Ms. Guess. Sorry.
Just a talking. Forgive me. Good evening, board and everyone. I'm grateful to be here tonight and share a little about what our behavioral health team has been working on during this season of remote learning. First, I would like to mention that the entire staff at Gloria Willis has been working very hard around our three foci, which is culture, social emotional learning, and instruction. And I'm really proud to be part of such an amazing staff. This semester, our BHT, which is our behavior health team, has been focused on really providing those touch points for the families in our GW community. Our team is, our BHT is composed of our Dean of Students, our school psychologists, our counselors, social workers, and here's a list of acronyms, our FACES, ISS, STS, MTSS, and recovery room monitors. Now, these are all supports within our school, and so they have all joined forces and are part of our behavior health team. So some of the things that they've been working on during this semester is performing home visits. We know that that's important to still let the community know that we are here and trying to support them the best way we can. So some of the things that they've done during some of their home visits have been, they've passed out and helped with technology, and they've delivered food, clothes, and hygiene products to some families that are in need. They've also delivered emergency relief items to families affected by COVID. Here recently, they were able to secure 17 Thanksgiving meals and delivered some of those to the families that didn't have transportation. They were also able to secure some Christmas donations and holiday meals. And so what the staff has done has really contributed to that. And they've done a good job, the team has, with soliciting and getting other people in the community to help and donate various items for our family. So currently what they're working on and plan to push out this Friday are the donations and the foods and the meals that they've collected. And they have, I believe, 44 as of right now, students that they are, families that they are bringing clothes, shoes, presents, and meals to. So that's just a little of what we are working on. Again, trying to really provide those touch points. We are looking forward to building this, knowing that we will be remote for a longer amount of time now. And so that's one of the things that we really want to try to get more kids and more of our families involved in and make sure that they get the supports that they need.
Thank you so much, Ms. Guess. Thank you so much for all that information and for the hard work. Ms. Stewart, how about Wyandotte High?
Well, let me share my screen with you just for a second. So here we go. Can see it? Okay. So good evening, President Lopez, Vice President Brownlee Page, board members, and Dr. Miguel. I'm Mary Stewart, principal at Wyandotte High School, and I've been asked to share with you about what we're doing here at Wyandotte. When it comes to keeping students connected and caring for their social emotional learning and isolation needs during this time of remote learning. At Wyandotte, we do build our work around a foundation of strong relationships. We believe that our work centers around building relationships and improving the quality of teaching and learning, and that all our time and resources must connect to these two areas. As we're all experiencing challenges and changes, we've committed not to change some of the support structures that help us to reach this focus. One of those support structures is our College and Career Academy model. Every one of our 1,700 students is a member of one of the academies at Wyandotte. Each academy has its own administrator, behavioral health team with a counselor and a social worker, and team of teachers who work closely together with their students. The academy team is collectively responsible for the success of every student, and academy teams meet weekly to problem solve, learn together, and strategize how to better meet the needs of our students, both social emotional needs and the academic needs. The second structure that's embedded in each academy is the family advocacy system. And each teacher serves as a family advocate and stays with their students throughout the 4 years of high school, connecting to the parents and providing support and guidance for the students as they go through the journey called high school. Advocates review grades, they review attendance reports, they're involved in celebrating students and engaging in problem solving the challenges the students face. Because the goal of the family advocacy system is that every student has a caring adult that they know and that knows them. The advocate's the adult who most often is more attuned to the challenges the student and family is facing within the home. So within each academy, with the advocates, the team is constantly monitoring meaningful contacts. They're identifying systems of communication and engaging in porch visits to try to reach our students. In classes each and every day, teachers are engaging in 2 or 3 minutes of mindfulness activities and temperature checks to allow teachers to monitor how students are feeling and try to catch students who may need additional supports or resources. Teachers know the importance of maintaining a positive, consistent, encouraging presence day after day. Teachers are constantly sharing ideas with colleagues and adjusting their practices to work to better support students. I've been in numerous classes where teachers pause to reach out to send a quick text through a communication app to students who are not in class, and then it results in the student getting logged on. Because teachers know that social emotional support has to happen by every teacher every day. The academy structure provides support for teachers to do just that. See, the academy teams also reach out to the resources outside the academy within the school, like the coaches and the band director, the orchestra vocal directors, and our librarian, all who have close relationships with a select group of students. But we also engage with some pretty special outside partnerships. We have an in-house youth services coordinator with Avenue of Life, and that supports our students with food, clothing, shelter needs, and personal care items, and many, many other things. We continue our work with the Bulldog School-Based Health Clinic with KU Med Center to support student health challenges. The Urban Scholastic Center, KU Gear Up, and Warriors for Wyandotte are just a few of our other partners that help us support our students. And another part of our systems of support that's invaluable is our classified staff. Our frontline secretaries who make and take multiple calls and are multitasking throughout each and every day are often the hub that keeps the connections flowing. And I truly marvel at the personal care they give to each and every caller. Every staff, certified and classified, has to assume the responsibility of leadership at Wyandotte. It's our collective effort of leadership that creates our web of support. Every staff member has a responsibility to care for our students and families by giving them time and attention and sharing positive energy with them. In addition, every staff member has a responsibility to care for each other and support each other as we daily face those new dilemmas and challenges. So what are we doing at Wyandotte to take care of our students, to keep them connected and care for their social and emotional learning? It's not an easy answer, but it starts with a mindset that has to be recommitted to each and every day. It's not a simple answer, but collectively, we are able to develop solutions, provide support and care for many, many students, especially in these unprecedented times. All of these systems, which are critical during a typical year, but are even more essential during remote learning. We have to constantly work to strengthen our systems of support and work together to be there for our students. We can't get tired. We have to work together to create hope every day. Thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit about our wrap-up service or wraparound services and our web of support here at Wyandotte High School.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stewart. And again, Ms. Guess, not surprised, we know the amazing work they are doing, and we wanted to share a little bit of, we are going to discuss student achievement data, but we also wanted to hear what else in addition, so that we can set the stage for kids learning. What are schools doing and working so hard at wrapping around those services so that students have the socio-emotional support at the same time that we keep challenging them academically. So thank you so much for sharing. We know it's a lot of work. I agree with Ms. Stewart, we cannot get tired, but I know people are welcoming the break that's coming, right? Because we're getting a little tired. It's been a lot of work. Something that is also amazing is to see how we have grown from when we suddenly went to remote learning in March to how we have developed all these systems, or I should say not developed, but adapted the systems that were already in place. So for schools that had these very strong systems, it was an easier transition because they just had to adapt them to remote learning. Schools that didn't have clear systems in place learned very quickly that we need them. So we worked and they communicated and they reach out to each other. So thank you so much. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, administrators and teachers. And this is just two examples from two of our schools. But every single school is putting these efforts out there and offering support to students and families. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time this evening sharing with us. And I see clapping around the room, so everybody appreciates it. And if you want, board members, if you want to reach out with questions, if you want more details about any of the services that they shared, please reach out. I'll be more than happy to pass them on to the principals or to get the information for you. And so this is from the school perspective. And we also, we are always so appreciative. We have some board members who are parents in our district also. So we always want to know, how do parents feel? How do kids feel? So the other day I was walking between our two buildings here, Central Office and North Central Office, and I saw Miss Mora, who is one of our employees, is a migrant worker. And so we started talking, how are things going? We hadn't seen each other in a while. And of course, my next question was, how are your children doing? How are they handling remote learning? And she started sharing the transition from when we first started to how they are doing now. And so I asked her, would you come and share with the board? It was just a parking lot conversation. And of course, she accepted and she was excited about coming and sharing her perspective as a parent. So I want to invite Ms. Vanessa Mora, who is a migrant advocate in our district. She's also a parent of a middle school student and a future parent of an early childhood student, or two maybe. One for sure next year. And she would like to share her perspective as a parent and the changes she has observed in her middle school student especially. So Ms. Mora, are you with us?
I am. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Yes, thank you. Like Dr. Miguel said, my name is Vanessa Mora, and I have been in the migrant education program for 10 years in our school district. But more importantly, I'm a parent and a graduate of our school district. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about the positives, because I don't feel like our staff is, at times that when things are a little bit harder, I feel like, the positives are not spoken about as much. In my case with my son, he is in 8th grade at Argentine Middle School, and he has done a complete 360 when it comes to remote learning. When we were first hit with the pandemic back in last quarter of last year, he didn't have much success. I will be completely honest. I know that we were scattering to try to figure out how remote learning was going to work for our kids to keep school going. And I know that our district did the best that they could at that time to start this remote learning journey for our students. But it was a little tough for him. He was getting just thrown assignments daily. The communication between teachers was strictly through email. And so the turnaround time to get a response if he had a question with an assignment or needed help with an assignment was a couple of days. And so that just dealt with, work being back, he just had more and more work every day. And so those assignments never stopped, but the help that he needed, wasn't instant. And so due to that, and of course, 7th grade's already a tough year, I feel like, for students, period. And so he was going through his transition and changes. And along with the pandemic happening, it hit him really hard. And I know my son, he's an amazing student, always has performed well. Never has he gotten anything below a B before. And so that last semester of 7th grade just really brought his self-esteem down in school, just because he wasn't doing as well as he was used to. And so I know that frustrated him a lot. But this year has been a complete 360. He thoroughly, I know that it was a transition, but he thoroughly enjoys being in school. When I'm home, I hear him interacting into his Zoom calls. I think that the way that middle school has been structured this year, and for him to be seeing every single teacher every single day and on the hour speaking with that teacher in the classroom, has just been a tremendous help for him. Not only that, every single day, there is a time slot allotted for these students to go back in with any teacher they need to talk to with assignments that they have now, and get the help they need without the whole classroom being there. I've even heard his teachers extend the help after the class has been over with, and telling kids to stay on the Zoom if they have any questions or if they need that additional help. And I feel like a lot of the teachers are kind of structuring their time and explaining the assignments that are given within like a 30 to 40 minute period, and that last 20 minutes leaving it open for students to come into that Zoom, talk to them personally, and for the teacher to be able to focus on the students who need more help than some of the other students in the classroom. And then those students are also not feeling as nervous to ask for that help, because not the whole classroom is on that Zoom. I feel like it's given my son more, this year has given him more the ability to think outside the box. Beforehand, I feel like he was just so stuck on everything had to be through email. He couldn't contact his teachers. And now I just feel like he's thinking outside the box when it comes to a lot of stuff. And I know that some of that maybe he's seen through, the work that I do in our district. And but we do have in the ESL department, we have started Saturday Language Academy, and him seeing that type of work and the interaction with teachers and the parents and students together has even made him think, he's like, oh, I can create my own Zoom with my classmates and we can study. And so there's been multiple times where him and his classmates have created their own Zoom, studied together for the class, and then hopped on the next day and have been attentive in class and well aware of what's going on. And so I just wanted our staff to know how appreciative I am of the hard work that's going on behind the scenes, of everything that they're doing for our children and making sure that our kids have what they need and trying to handle every single challenge that comes their way. And I feel like even working in the migrant department, I feel like a lot of the challenges that our families do have, because I know it's different at every education level. I know elementary is completely different from middle school, but I feel like our district has done the best that they can for those challenges to be met in some way, for us to try to fix those in some capacity.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mora. We really, really appreciate you sharing it. It's very evident that it comes from the heart. And I didn't invite Ms. Mora just because she was going to praise what we were doing, but she had such a clear picture for me. She shared with me such a clear picture of how we have grown and how teachers are really working so hard to accommodate the needs of students and are getting creative and are reaching out to make sure that there is that meaningful daily contact, that I thought she would be a great combination of an employee who's seeing this from within, but also a parent who's seeing it at home. And I love how she managed to include that little shout out to the ESL department. Thank you so much. That's of course where her heart is. So we do appreciate all of that work. Thank you so much. We know you're a busy mom with your work and the kids, but taking time to come to the board meeting and share with us really means a lot. And I appreciate that you are willing to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
I also wanted to share a couple of updates on some topics that we discussed at the last board meeting. There were some questions about the district website. So I wanted to let you know that we have reviewed the information located under the reopening of school plan, and that section was updated. The communications department shared distributed communication to all departments and all school campuses to make sure that they review their individual pages and to communicate with the department when it needs to be updated. And they will review the information on the website more frequently to make sure that it's accurate and that the content is relevant and current. So I want to thank the communications department because they acted very quickly after they got the concern. Thank you so much. We also had a conversation about meal distribution the last time, and after the board approved the consolidation of the meal size, we distributed a flyer to all the meal sites to communicate which those words and about the changes. The communications team collaborated to create the flyer, and the same information was shared on social media platforms, newsletter, Facebook, and Twitter. Sharita Hatton reports that they have reached 10,498 people to share the information on social media. So that's a lot of information out there. And it was also placed on our website. The nutritional services team has made a very strong attempt to contact families by phone, and they started with the special diet students to help them understand the transition and make sure that they would get direct communication. And they have, as of today, contacted 343 homes. There are different ways in which they are communicating: phone, social media, like I said, the newsletter. And according to Ms. Miller, we have reached actually more families in meal distribution than before with this mode of communication. So meal delivery has increased also to 1,680 children and serving an average of 3,360 meals each day. So good news there. Excellent work. Thank you so much, Nutritional Service Department. We also want to share the Enough is Enough campaign. The district has been having meetings with students from the high schools and the adult representatives. Every time I attend one of those meetings, I am amazed at how thoughtful our students are, how aware they are of what's happening, of what their needs are, and what they can do themselves for other students and for the community. So it's been a very enriching conversation. We want to make sure that if you have not done so, please follow us and sign the pledge by visiting enough.kckps.org. So make sure that you support it, and we'll keep you posted on the initiatives that these students are thinking about, because it's really, really impressive. We want to share also, we have wellness seminars. We know the holidays are sometimes a time of joy, but it can also be a time of anxiety for some of us. So we want to remind our staff that we are here for them, that we have our wellness coordinator who is doing an amazing job, Ms. Stephanie Ferris, and there are 2 30-minute seminars for staff that can be done remotely. So we want to encourage you to take advantage of the resources that we have. And we have a lot more, but I know we have a lot on our agenda also. So I just wanted to say, we know we're going into the winter break. We know we're going to be away from our families and our children for a few days. And we want to ask everyone to make sure that they take care of themselves, take care of each other, make sure that you keep the mitigation procedures during the winter break, wear your masks, keep social distance so that as a community, we can stay healthy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel, and thank you, staff, and Vanessa, and everyone for sharing, Ms. Stewart, and all of you for all the amazing work that you're doing, continue to do. So we appreciate the update. A lot of great things continuing to happen. So it's always good to hear the positives in terms of how we're implementing things to help remove some of the barriers that our students and families face. So thank you so much. Just a couple of things that I'll share quickly, and before we continue to move on, I do just want to also give a quick shout out to Ms. Laura Mersman and Ms. Jessica Smith and their respective departments in our district for the continued work that they do to support our families. They recently had a harvester's meal distribution at Wyandotte High School where they distributed meals to several families, hundreds of families who were needing some of that support. So I just want to thank them for their coordination of that. And also, both Ms. Smith and Ms. Mersman are working to help get about 200 of our KCK families adopted for the holidays. And so in conjunction with our social workers, our counselors, parent liaison, FACES staff, district staff, and then other community support, we were able to adopt nearly 200 families. And Ms. Smith and Ms. Mersman and their teams are actually out tonight as we are speaking, delivering some of those gifts and support to families. So I just want to give them a shout out for doing some amazing work, and the staff that contributed to that. Thank you so much for that work. Also want to give a shout out to Miss Lindsay Black from Lowell Bruni Elementary and her 3rd grade classroom. They shared with us their learning about local government and about the democratic system. And so they shared some letters with the board members this past week. And so really impressive letters of around meal and healthy meals in their schools. And so I just want to give them a shout out for for practicing, putting into practice what they learned. Thank you so much, Miss Black, for working with your students, and to all those students that submitted letters to the board. We appreciate you, and we might be getting back to you on some of those requests. I do just want to give a shout out again to Dr. Miguel and the team and all of the staff for the work with the outside visitation team when they were here or virtually. I know there was a lot of work and effort that went into that and putting those reports together. So I just want to say thank you to all of that. I know it takes a little bit of extra time. So thank you to you, Dr. Miguel, and to the staff for that. And then lastly, and I know we'll get to this during our board updates with Mr. Guerra, you should have received some communications around our superintendent search. We will conduct some community town hall forums in early January. That information will be pushed out, but we do have a couple of sessions in English and a couple in Spanish. The dates for those, I just want to make sure people know. Tuesday, January 5th from 6 to 7 p.m. Thursday, January 7th from 6 to 7 in Spanish. Saturday, January 9th from 11 to 12 in English, and then Saturday, January 9th from 1 to 2 in Spanish. But more information will come on how to join those town halls, but I just want to make sure that we push that out. And the survey for the superintendent search is also active on our website, so please make sure folks get that out and fill that out. We want to get as much community input as we can. So with that, I will conclude unless there are other board members that had something to share before we move on. Great, thank you.
Oh, Randy, I have a quick comment. It was really great to see the OVT team and our Matt and Lisa, all the team who presented. I want to say thank you for representing our district very well. The information that was presented was in depth. It was very well communicated. And I just really want to thank you for all the hard work that you're done to help spotlight our district. It's so important that we see the wins, the areas for improvement, and how we can continue to grow as a district. It was just so exciting. I really enjoyed that full day. So thank you for all that you do. Also, as a parent in the district who I hear those teachers online and I pray for you. Oh my goodness. I want to thank you for all the hard work you're doing. Every motivational thing you say to those children, I really, really love. There's a counseling session for elementary students to take every week. I think even maybe daily. There's a segment to where it says counseling and they say, how are you feeling? What's your emotions? What are your thoughts? I'm so glad that that component is part of our curriculum because we as parents also have to acknowledge that there are some feelings and emotions that we're not used to in COVID. So our children are going through it as well. So I think it's really important to keep our mental health in perspective along with our children. It's important for us to breathe and de-stress and really kind of talk through the emotions that we're feeling. So I want to thank you and your staff, all of the teachers, everyone in this district, because you're giving 150 or more percent to our kids, and it's so appreciated. So I just want to say thank you, because the work and rewards are paying off for our children one day at a time.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager. Any other board members? If not, we will continue on. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, Randy. I was trying to get myself off mute. I, again, also just want to say thank you. I know in the last meeting, I talked a lot about the wraparound process and what we were doing for our students. So I do appreciate being able to hear from the staff and from a parent perspective tonight. And by no means do I want you to take this as negative. I think my question is, what more can we do? And I think that should just be a question that's always being asked. But again, I really appreciate what is happening and the effort that is being put into making sure our students and our staff are successful this year.
And we appreciate that question, Ms. Clark, and that's a question that we are asking each other all the time. So I appreciate you bringing it back. What more can we do? Because we know there is always more.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Miguel.
And thank you, Dr. Yeager, for those words of encouragement. I do want to give a big shout out to Matt Anderson and Lisa Walker, because they and the whole team, and I'm naming their names because they are the ones who led the effort, but everybody worked so hard. And I have to say, we got a little bit of feedback and it was already positive, very useful. So once we have the report back, we will share with the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Miguel.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we will move on now to the reports of the KCK Library.
So we have first a recommendation that we pay the bills for the library.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Ms. Smith, roll call.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next one is the library director's report, Ms. Levers.
Good evening, board. Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Good evening, everybody. Dr. Miguel, could you just open my report for me so the board can follow? Appreciate that.
Give me just 1 second. I'm going to share my screen then.
Thank you. This will be short and sweet, hopefully. Sharing you the statistics for November and October, November, we signed up 403 new e-cards in the month of November and 203 in October. And you can see the rest of the services that we've offered. Further down, you could see at the end of our curbside pickup, we have checked out 14,145 items in November, and we placed 7,614 items on hold for our community. Next one. We had a successful author online visit, Libby Copeland, the Libby Copeland event. And I think by now you all should have received your copy. It was a very successful, not many, we had 69 people, 67 people, I think, 169 people signed up for the event. And afterwards, questions came through to the library, and we got the permission to have it on video. So 71 more people after the event went to visit it and watch that. And we're still getting requests of people, wanting to see that. Just a few patron comments. I'm putting all the comments, patron comments, so that you as board can see what is going on. Some of the patrons said it's a must-read book. Thank you so much for the presentation, etc. But the rest is there for you to read for yourself. There's also one that says, cannot thank the KCKPL enough for this opportunity. I really enjoyed the presentation. The next one is the virtual author. We are having a YA author come in January 21st at 2:30 p.m. And we've signed up all the high school students, or we've asked the librarians to work with all high school and middle school students. Some of the teachers wanted all their students to sign up for this event. We have books available that we are getting ready to get to our students before the winter break, so that they can read the book over the winter break. And then obviously January 12th, when the author comes, we'll be ready to be able to converse and ask relevant questions. So we're looking forward to that. Next one, please. Then we will be having Isabelle Wilkerson in February. She's the author of Cass, and we've already started a live book read every Thursday at 12 p.m. If you sign up, we'll be able to share the link with you so that you can join in the discussion with this book. And as you can read, Ms. Wilkerson is an author of Oprah Book Club, and she's just received a couple of awards. I'm glad we got her before she got the awards. Otherwise, she would have been out of our price line. But it's fantastic. They priced us a heck of a lot of money, and I said, hey, you remember, we are libraries. We don't have that kind of money. And they were really very good in working with us. But I'm sure now, after she got all these awards, I'm just glad that we got her before. And so the actual book talk will be February 18th. And remember, you don't have to have the book if the books are not available, because we have so many on reserve and people want putting holds on there. You can just link in live and listen to the read of. We do 3 chapters a week until February 18th. So you're welcome to do that. Next one, please. And then again, all the normal patron comments that we have. And the only thing that I can kind of pull out there is that somebody wrote in, cannot thank the KCKPL enough for this opportunity. And we're really excited. They've also done some handout kits, and most of the parents are so excited, because they don't have any more ideas of what to do with the kids. So obviously we have parents line up or call in, and we used to keep enough kids. Now it's like first come, first serve, and they come in early in the morning because they're scared by the time after lunchtime, all the kids are gone. So the staff is whole day really working just to have kids available so that the parents can have crafts for the little ones, and that, up to teenagers as well. So we really appreciate it. I just want a shout out to, on behalf of KCKPL, convey to the board and the community. Staff, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Feliz Navidad, and have a healthy, hopefully prosperous 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. Important work done by the libraries, and we're so happy to hear that people are taking advantage of it. And if you haven't tried the e-card and checking out books electronically, try it because it's so easy. Very nice. And now the next one is a request to approve the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library Human Resources Report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Yes.
thank you, Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Levers, for that report. I have my book, everybody, so make sure you get yours.
Thank you.
All right, we will continue on with our agenda. Next is the consent agenda. Would entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. Next on our agenda is to pay our bills.
So moved.
Second.
Didn't say any discussion? All right, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. All right, continuing on. So next we have our board updates. And first on our agenda, I'd like to welcome Mr. Guerra with AG Consulting, who is joining us tonight to give us a brief update on the superintendent search. And I just want to say thank you, James, for joining us. Please pass along thanks to your staff or your team as well. I know you all have been busy at work, and I just want to say thank you to the board as well and to Ms. Smith for coordinating the times to get with Mr. Guerra and his team to give input, to put together the stakeholder list and everything that we've been doing. Thank you all for just being a great collaborative team with Mr. Guerra and JG Consulting. I feel the process is going very well, but we have James here to let us know how things are moving along. So James, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Board President Lopez. Good evening, distinguished members of the board. As Mr. Lopez stated, my name is James Guerra. I'm the President and CEO of JG Consulting. Joining me this evening is my colleague, Mr. Alton Fraley. You can probably see him there on the screen waving to all of you. So good to see all of your faces virtually. We hope at some point here in the near future, we'll actually be able to break bread, see you in person. So to echo your colleague's sentiments earlier, here's to hopefully a much better and more prosperous 2021 for us all. I think Board President Lopez articulated the high-level plan for our executive search major milestones as we approach the new year. But to also echo his comments, I want to thank Mr. Edwin Birch, Mrs. Leslie Smith, and we'll soon be working with Christopher, and I apologize, Christopher, I don't know your last name, but we'll be working with Chris soon to schedule the virtual town hall meetings. So if I could direct everybody to please acknowledge that the superintendent search page is up to date as of this moment. So if you were to visit kckps.org/2020-superintendent-search, and again, / that will redirect you to the major milestones, the timeline as agreed upon by the Board of Education, and also planned in advance with us, the JG Consulting search firm. We will continue to update this webpage as we advance through the executive search process. You'll notice that there are several town hall meetings that are scheduled. 2 within this page are in English and then 2 in Spanish. So all 4 dates have been identified and agreed upon by the board. Our team will facilitate and help moderate the discussion with the community members who participate. So we welcome everybody's participation and also want to acknowledge that the survey is still available for public consumption. So should you feel compelled to respond, we encourage everyone to respond. And if it was too difficult to follow the URL address that I just rattled off for you, you can simply type in superintendent search, on the district's homepage, and it'll redirect you to the appropriate landing page. So happy to answer any questions you might have at this time. We will be following up with various organizations, individuals, and groups recommended by the board to begin our community outreach meetings. So we are planning that now as a team. So if you've been interested and eager to meet with us, please be on the lookout for personal invitations to join us for a Zoom meeting the first week of January. Will be available by Zoom or by telephone at your convenience. So we'll do everything we can to accommodate everyone's schedules. So I think we'd be happy to take any questions at this time if there are any.
No question. If there are no questions, you can always, board members, please feel free to reach out to myself and Ms. Page, and we can always reach out to Mr. Guerra and his team, or you can contact him directly if you would like to speak with him about the search as well. But again, James, I just want to say thank you to you. I see Patricia Linares is online with us, so I just want to recognize that she's joined us as well. Thank you to you and your team for the work you all have been doing thus far. Very important, and we want to make sure we get this right. And absolutely, Mr. Birch, you and your team have been step in step with Mr. Guerra and making this happen. And so I would encourage everyone to join the town hall meetings in January and fill out the survey and share that far and wide. We want to make sure we get as much community input as we can. Given the circumstances with COVID, we also want to be safe. So there are opportunities for you to give your input if you would like to. So last call for questions, board members.
No, I just want to echo just to share. If you see it out there and you're on our social media page and you see it there, please encourage others to go out and also do the same so that we can hear from several voices.
Please share it with everyone that you know.
Thank you. Okay, well, James and your team, you guys got off easy tonight.
Thank you. Well, it was good to see everybody. Thank you, Board President Lopez, and again, distinguished members of the board and staff. Thanks for all of your hard work and your assistance. I know it's been a fast and furious process, but your support is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much.
Happy holidays to you and your families, James and team, and we look forward to continuing working with you. Thank you.
Likewise. Take care, everybody.
Happy
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right. We will continue on with our agenda. Next up, we have Miss Crystal Watson with an update from the foundation. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. President, and to our Vice President, Ms. Wanda Page, and to all the board members. Good evening.
Good evening.
So it's time for an update from the foundation. And let me just blow this up for you. I'm pretty sure you guys can see the screen now. All right. First of all, we want to say thank you to the district, to our board, to everyone who participated in the Reason to Believe event. Of course, you all know that was on November 12th. It was virtual. We wish we could have done it in person, but we think it went off okay. So to all of you, thank you very much. For anyone who tuned in and supported that effort, we greatly, greatly appreciate you. So on behalf of the foundation board, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, the good news is from that is that we're going to be putting up some banners of all those honorees. And so guess what? You guys get a first look at the draft. So here we are. Here's Mr. Rusty, Dr. Rusty Hawkins. This is an example of what the 2019 and our 2020 will look like. So those banners will go up on the poles outside. And we're going to go ahead and hang those through the year until next year when we do our 2021 Reason to Believe honorees. So I wanted to give the board first look at that draft. It may change a little bit, but for the most part, this is what the banners will look like, and we will proudly hang those for our community to see. Any questions? Y'all like them? Yes, thumbs up. All right, I got some thumbs. All right, next is an update for the We Care, We Act program. We now have $70,000 in grant funds for our response and recovery. So part of that 25,000, then we got an additional 45,000. And that, of course, I'll just remind you all that we use that towards in partnership with Student Services to support our McKinney-Vento families. And as of today, we have given out $15,696.41. So we paid out utilities for our families. Now, we're not limited to that. We can do utilities. We can do, as you can see, gas and rent. We can also provide transportation. We can provide food. In fact, we're working with Student Services right now to provide food for families who have children who have severe allergies like the celiac disease. So there's many ways that we can provide support for those families. But right now we've served 142 people, and of that, 84 have been students. So that equates to 33 households. And as you can see, the breakdown and how we have provided that support in utility, gas, and of course, in electric service, rent, and internet. And that's all I have to report for you. Unless you have any other questions, I'll keep you posted on what we do for next year, what the plans are for next year. You will get an annual report from us in the first couple weeks of January. I'll have an annual report to provide to the community as well as to the board. And we'll announce what dates our events will be for 2021. We are going to do a golf tournament next year. So get ready. We're going to need volunteers and we'll need each of you to participate as much as you can with a donation or just come play some golf. But as you know, we raise those funds in support of the foundation and to provide scholarships. And of course, our scholarship season will kick off in February, but we'll give you more of that later. But that's all I have to give. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if I don't see you again.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. I do just want to say that I feel like you've done an amazing job this year with the foundation and really getting us back to where we want to be and very visible and active and engaged in the community. So I just want to thank you for the hard work that you and your team have done. I love the graphics that you and your team put together for things. They're really easy on the eyes and really good to just a great way to communicate what we're doing. So thank you to you and your team. Congratulations on the event. It was better than just than what you said. It was great, in a virtual setting. So congratulations.
Great, yay. Thank you very much. Well, I thank all of you, each and every one of you. I have so much respect for all of you and I have personal relationships with all of you. And I just hope if there's anything I can do or if there's anything you need or you need to pull my coattail, feel free to do so. I will respond appropriately. But thank you all. And there'll be some more news coming. We got some special stuff. Dr. McGill and I got something cooking for y'all. So get ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Watson.
Thank you so much. The next item is we are asking the Kansas City Board of Education, Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education to accept this presentation as an informational item from Dr. LaShonda Bilbo Irving. Dr. Irving, are you with us? And it's a strategic initiative update.
Good evening, President Lopez, Vice President Page, Dr. McGill, and board members in attendance this evening. As Dr. Miguel stated, I'm Dr. LaShonda Bilbo Irvin, and I'm providing a strategic board update for you this afternoon. I will be reporting out to you strategic plan theme number 2, expand college and career readiness at all grade levels. Underneath that theme, the initiative that I'm reporting out is create Diploma Plus experiences in grades K to 5 that align with the Kansas curricular standards for school counseling. And really just to take us back to why this is important and the reason we do this, we determined based on the evidence that there is lack of programming for college and career readiness at the elementary level. And so we've implemented a plan in place to make sure that we can work with elementary school campuses to support them in the development of these activities, using performance measures of quantitative data to determine the amount of college and career readiness exposure activities happen at each campus. Our initial work plan, this is our first draft. The team that was comprised of elementary school principals, elementary school counselors, elementary instructional coordinators, and elementary IOs, we developed our first draft of our initiative work plan. And as you can see, really, we started off with training. So in August, the early adopter training consists of 5 to 7 members from every elementary school. That group was called the early adopters. We trained that particular group to be able to take the message, the reasoning, and the why back to elementary campuses and show staff how to use the connector, which is the tool that we will use to ensure career readiness in our elementary schools. In September, our staff was to take that message, the adopters would take that message back to the staff and really be able to share best practices, use the tool, and be able to work with staff about the importance and how to use it. So the rest of the work plan shows that we, at certain times throughout the year, we would collect data, and our benchmarks goals were 25% of elementary teachers would be using the connector in December, 50% in January, 75% in April, and 100% of elementary teachers complete at least one connector session by the end of the school year. Based on feedback we received, we updated the work plan. There definitely have been challenges in initiating this particular initiative due to the fact of staff development, training. Once our school teams received the training, some staff, some schools were confident in moving forward with the plan, and other schools needed a little bit more support. We revised and updated our work plan, as you can see, for January. We pushed back from December to January with teacher usage, 50% in February, and then the same amounts in April and May. We're making sure that we check in with the schools often, provide support for our staff in the usage. This slide here shows you just the status of how the initiative is going at our elementary campuses. In motion, we have 5 elementary schools that have taken off, and they've executed 2 or more connector sessions in the classrooms. And remember, we talked about the connector earlier in the year. Well, this platform tool connects our elementary students with business and industry professionals throughout our community and across the US. And so those 5 elementary schools jumped right in after our first initial training in August, and they're off to a great start. We have 16 schools that are in the planning stage. They committed the initial training, submitted lesson plans, and they've requested some sessions, and those sessions will be forthcoming through the connector. And in progress, so we have 7 buildings in progress. They're receiving some additional training and support in making sure that they have are able to request the connector sessions in the correct way. Our next steps in checking in with our elementary schools is to set up new trainings. We may have to adjust our timeline even more And make sure to keep the communication between the Diploma Plus department and elementary school principals open so we can see where more support is needed. Are there any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bilbo-Irvin, for that information. Board, if you have any questions, please send them to Dr. Miguel and we can get you additional updates, or to Dr. Bilbo-Irvin. But thank you so much for the information.
Thank you. And the next item is an update on the school reentry plan as an informational item. And I would like to invite Mr. Anderson to share with us the latest updates. Thank you.
Good evening, President Lopez, Vice President Page, board members, and Dr. Miguel. At our last board meeting, the board requested that we bring some achievement data to our meeting. And so we shared a written report with all of you over the weekend. We know that that was a long written report, but we wanted to make sure that you had all of the necessary information and give you some specific details around grade levels. So you can be informed of what's happening here in the system. Tonight, we're going to highlight the assessments that were given and the data that we've collected from those assessments. We'll also share some information regarding grades, specifically on the D and F rate, which I think a lot of people are concerned about. And then we're going to share the latest data that we have from our students who are taking classes with Kansas City, Kansas Community College. After that, we're going to share what implications this data has on our next steps as it relates to teaching and learning. As you know, it does take a village to run a school district. And so after the data presentation, I'm going to have department leaders briefly update you on where we are in the district as it relates to reentry. And then finally, at the end of this board item, we are going to ask for possible board action on a recommendation for elementary specials grades, which Dr. Miguel shared with all of you in her Friday report. And I know that this is probably going to be the longest part of the board meeting. So we want to get started, but it's got a lot of good, helpful information as we move forward as a system. Oops. And I don't need the dictionary. Here we go. Sorry about that. So just to give everyone background in where we are with our student data during this pandemic, we adopted FastBridge, the assessment system, last year as our universal screener per KSDE requirements. We also have the CAP interim predictives that we take in the fall, the winter, and spring. At the beginning of this year, it was a collaborative decision between district leaders that we would make these assessments optional and for the fall. Give you some rationale for why we made that decision. First, the stress of this pandemic on our stakeholders has been high. And we wanted to make sure that our stakeholders could focus on the quality of teaching and learning versus trying to take a test. And sometimes tests give people anxiety. And so we didn't want to add that extra burden on our staff, our teachers, our students, and our parents. We also have to remember that there were some KSDE shifts in requirements, and we also had some interim issues with the state. KSDE has deferred the requirement of universal screeners until 2021, 2022. However, we know as a district, we've purchased this and we want to use it to its fullest capabilities since we do not have access to our MAP assessment that we had in previous years. So we'll talk about our next steps with using this assessment system. We did find that there were some issues with the CAP predictive interim software and our usage of iPads, and this was across the state. And so that impacted our ability to test our students at the 3rd and 4th grade level. And so we opted to say this is an optional assessment based on those reasons. One of the things that we did, though, however, do is we did require that grades be a part of all of the work we do here in the system, as well as providing students with meaningful feedback. And we followed the Board of Education policy for grading. And that was added to our remote learning plan to remind our staff and our families that this is what we are going to do here in the system. While we know assessments are important, we also knew that we needed to do some work around high quality instruction and the use of common formative assessment data in our learning or in our professional learning communities. And so our focus was having PLCs utilize the common assessments that are listed within our guaranteed viable curriculum documents and our new curriculum resources. I did miss that last bullet on the top, which is multiple district initiatives. As you know, the board graciously adopted or helped us adopt our new curriculum resources for this year. And so we had a lot of training on those to get people to be able to implement those with ease in their classrooms. So next, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Dr. Benjamin Price, our Interim Director of Evaluation, Research, and Assessment, to discuss the assessments or these optional assessments that we provided and talk about the student achievement data that was gathered. We're also going to have Dr. LaShonda Bilbo Irvin discuss the data that we've collected from our Kansas City, Kansas Community College dual and concurrent enrollment. So Dr. Price, I'm going to send it over to you.
Mr. Anderson, Dr. Miguel, members of the board, I greatly appreciate the time and space tonight to be able to share this information with you. Big, broad, general purposes around FastBridge during this optional window. Purpose one was to gain familiarity with a new testing platform in a remote setting. And purpose two is really to gather information regarding what students know and are able to do that would complement in some way the grades and the formative assessments that were already being given. With regard to the FastBridge background, one of the pieces of value is in its universal screening capabilities. And big, broad, and generally that purpose really is to identify students potentially at risk for not meeting age-appropriate or developmentally appropriate outcomes. And those could be academic or social emotional. The specific assessments concentrated during this fall window on the academic side. The A reading assessment of FastBridge is very similar in scope to MAP. Likewise, the A math assessment, very similar to MAP. This auto reading is a skills-specific subtest that FastBridge has, and there's a skills-specific set of subtests for math too that we'll most certainly get into later. But for right now, the specific assessments, again, to most concentrate on are the A reading and A math, given their similarities to the MAP test. So once students complete these tests in particular, they get scores, they get raw numbers, but those scores correspond to what FastBridge calls levels of risk. And so FastBridge classifies students as high risk, which is scoring in the lowest 15th percentile. And that means that they perhaps are very unlikely to meet grade level goals without intensive instructional support. Some risk is between the 15th and the 38th percentile. They perhaps are unlikely to meet grade level goals without supplemental instructional support. The low risk category is between the 39th percentile and 70th percentile in ELA and the 39th percentile and 65th in math. So there's a little bit of variation, but those are the students who are likely to meet grade level goals. And then there's the college pathway designation if you score above the 70th percentile in ELA or above the 65th percentile in math, and that's very likely to meet grade level goals and beyond. So when we look at big, broad, and generally some district level data with regard to A reading, we found essentially that in the tested population, approximately 40% of tested students are at low risk or above. So they are likely or very likely to meet grade level academic outcomes in reading. We do recognize that the remaining 60% do have some risk associated with that. And when we look at A math, thank you. When we look at A math, we see that again, 40% of tested students are low risk or above, again, likely or very likely to meet grade level outcomes. And again, we do recognize there's that 60% there that is at risk in some way of not meeting those outcomes. Thank you. And so with regard to CAP interim testing, the purposes of that is to highlight connections between KSDE standards and the actual questions that are asked on the test in light of what teaching opportunities are present throughout the course of the year to reinforce those standards, and also to provide a predictive summative score based on questions asked too. And so when we look specifically at the predicted summative score, we see that out of, next slide, please. Thank you. Out of the total tested was 2,267, and that encompassed 7 elementary schools and 1 middle school. Out of the 1,156 ELA tests taken, 168 were predicted to score proficient. So that's 14.53%. And the percentage is a little bit lower in math. Out of approximately 1,100 math tests taken, 104 were predicted to score proficient, and that would be 9.36%. First quarter grades, the percentage of students 6 through 12 with at least 1 D or F has increased over a year ago by about 20 percentage points. If we take just the Fs, we find a similar 20% increase over a year ago as well. Next slide, please. But there's more variation seen in GPA. So there's approximately, I see 30% of students with a 3.0 or better. And that is at the district level, at the high school level, and at the middle school level. So more variation here, to me, says that there are students who are succeeding. There are some students who are doing well. Next slide, please. And now I will pass the baton over to Dr. Bilbo Urban, who will talk about some dual enrollment data.
Do you want us to wait and then ask the questions?
Yes, Ms. Page, we're going to go through the data part. And then once we get to the end of the data part, we're going to ask for questions. So we've got a few more slides, and then we'll definitely ask for questions then. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. I am presenting information regarding dual and concurrent enrollment. So what the slide here shows is the fall 2019 enrollment in blue, and in orange, the fall 2020 enrollment. So the fall 2019 enrollment, 973 students, as opposed to our enrollment for fall 2020, 741 students. So that's a decrease in enrollment of 232 students that are enrolled in our dual and concurrent college classes. I will say that in those courses, these are tech courses where students had to actually go to KCK Community College, the Tech Center. Students did opt out. They had a choice to opt out if they did not feel comfortable attending in-person learning labs. And these classes are cosmetology, are welding, automotive, CNA, all of the classes we house at the Tech Center. So we had a significant amount of students decide that they did not want to participate in those in-person lab experiences. If you look at midterm grades from last semester to this semester, particularly looking at students who received Ds and Fs from 2019 to 2020 of the fall semester. In 2019, there were 55 students who received Ds in their classes, as opposed to this year, fall of 2020 at the midterm, 29 students had Ds in their classes for fall 2020. In regards to Fs, 35 students had Fs at the midterm last year at this time. This year, 28 students have Fs, had Fs at the midterms this current school year. And then lastly, we look at withdrawals. Students have an opportunity to withdraw. They feel that they're not doing well. We had students who started working and could no longer continue the classes. So when you look at the data of fall of 2019, 73 students withdrew from classes. And here in 2020 of the fall, 45 students withdrew from their dual and concurrent classes.
So Ben, I'm going to have you talk about what applications and conclusions does this have for our work moving forward?
Sure. So what we learned in this fall testing period is that we'll continue to look at a future requirement of winter fast bridge screening while continuing in remote learning. We're going to have to continue to assess the viability of future CAP interim testing simply because of the iPad the iPad issue and compatibility with that software. We're going to strengthen the connections between the skills that FastBridge highlights, the standards, whether on the CAP interim or not, and grading. And of course, we will provide you with further updates, such as comparisons and descriptions in the future. So in conclusion, for the data portion, the close relationship between FastBridge, A reading, and A math, when you put the low risk and college pathway students together at about 40%, suggests that there's on or very near grade level learning across both subjects in this tested sample. The small sample sizes in CAP interim testing could contribute to a less stable prediction of that future score. And the DNF increases in secondary schools mixed with that GPA evidence suggest perhaps future root cause analyses that we could look deeper into the cause of those increases as well.
And then based on those conclusions and those applications, I just wanted Darcy Swan, our Director of Curriculum Instruction, to talk briefly about what are our next steps? What does this data have or how does this have implications on our teaching and learning moving forward?
Yes, as a curriculum and instruction team, we analyze our district data through the lens of what can we learn from the data, and then what does our collective response need to be. And so we identified some things that we know in the next few weeks moving forward we need to help support not just our principals, our instructional coaches, and our teachers. Number one, we need to have a laser light focus on Tier 1 core instruction. That is our first teach. That is our prevention to intervention. And so one of the things that we've done systemically is to identify priority standards at each grade level and for content areas. And this was determined using guidance from KSDE, both the competencies that were laid out navigating change, and also some of the priority standards that the TAS and MTSS group had identified previously as well. Secondly, we want to make sure that teachers feel very supported in the use of their district provided resources, and that principals, coaches, and our teachers have the necessary professional learning around those resources, because those resources are aligned to the content, they're aligned to the standards, and they promote just positive instructional design methods. Third, we want to make sure that our teachers are supported in standards-based planning, making sure, again, we're going back to those priority standards, and we are leveraging our focused model of instruction to really have a focus on what is it that the standards are asking students to know and be able to do. And then fourth would be, how do we know if they've learned it? And making sure that we, as practitioners, are really focusing on formative daily assessment. How do I, as the classroom teacher, formatively assess students on a daily basis around those priority standards? And this could be quick checks, a check for understanding, leveraging some of our technology tools to just get a feel for, which kiddos are getting it, which kiddos don't have it, so that we can really start focusing on some differentiated supports for kids. We're going to try to provide the supports mentioned in 1 through 4 through our instructional coaching model and through professional learning communities. I had the ability to sit in one professional learning community today that was facilitated by one of our elementary principals, and she did a fantastic job of really supporting her teachers as the instructional leader of her building in terms of what strategies are working, how are we engaging kids, asking that question of how do we know that they're learning, and really just facilitating some strong conversation around research-based instructional strategies. And what that really means for us in remote learning is we need to keep our focus on Tier 1 core instruction, but be really mindful and intentional when we're planning for differentiated instruction, flexibly and intentionally grouping our students to pre-teach and reteach around those priority standards. As a teacher, we need to be thinking about the synchronous time that I'm spending with students and engaging them in some reflection around learning, and also making sure that the experiences that we're providing them asynchronously are meaningful and relate back to the standards that we've set to teach.
So before we move on in our presentation, this is where, Ms. Page, we're going to ask if you have any questions, we'd be happy to help answer those.
Okay, this is Wanda Brownlee Page.
Yes.
You focused on the D's and F's, but some students got I's. What percentage of the students got I's? How much time do they have to go back to make up what they missed, what they didn't understand? That's one question. I'll just stop there and wait for an answer. And then I thought I would like another way to show D's and F's than the way you showed them, because to me it wasn't as clear.
Okay.
I know in the past in the district, they would say 70% of our students in high school had a C or better. And then they would say middle school level, elementary, but you're doing it a little different and you threw a lot of stuff together. If it could just get it a little cleaner. Maybe it's just me. I'm just saying it wasn't so easy to comprehend. And I do know they're given I's and you didn't deal with that. So what percentage of the students got an I and how long do they have to make that up?
So Ms. Page, thank you for the feedback. We do appreciate it around the data. We know that it was a little confusing, and so we appreciate that. Ben, were you able to run a report on the I's?
All I could find was were the D's and F's, were the ABCDs and F's. I was not able to find an I.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but when I talked to some elementary people, they said they gave a lot of I's because the kids are they're on, but they're not completing the work. So what's the strategy? Because this is universal, not blaming anybody, but how do we get our kids, if they're on, then how do we get them to do the work, to complete the work? Is there a misunderstanding? Do they not know what to do? What are some other strategies? You don't have to tell me now, but that's something we need to think about. How do we get them to turn the work in?
So Ms. Page, just to clarify, that's a great question around the I's. When we look at elementary grades versus high school and middle school, I at the elementary grades means in progress. And so that just means that they're making or they're inadequate progress. I don't know off the top of my head, I can't remember which one, but it means something a little different than at the high school and middle school level where an I means incomplete. And so we can see where we do have incompletes at the high school level. And then
we still have A, B, C, and D and F grades in elementary school. So when does that I formally become a grade?
When the I at elementary will be a grade.
Okay, I got what you said, but my question is, eventually you're going to have to give them a grade. Now they can't go through the whole school year with a bunch of I's. When do I get a grade?
So at the high school level, they will get a grade and it'll be an F or an A, B, C, D, or F. At the elementary grade, the I is an actual grade in the grade book. So I means inadequate progress. So that means essentially the student, they get an A, B, C, or I at elementary level. And so I essentially means they're getting a D or F at the elementary level, to put it in perspective as you would relate to that, if that makes sense. So
yeah, it does, but let me ask you this question.
Yep.
They got an I, but when does it turn over to a D or F? You're in progress, but I guess my question is, does it ever become a D or F, or will it stay on that grade card as an I?
So what we did at the end of the fourth quarter, because we knew we had a lot of students that had D's and F's, and one of our intentions or our next steps with that was to give a month. Usually we give 2 weeks for students to make up missing work or to give them time to master the content, especially if they've had those incompletes. Instead of doing only 2, we increased that amount of time to 4 weeks. So we gave students and teachers a month to help them master the content and then to also allow them to make up missing work. And that's one of the steps that we took. And I'm going to ask if the IAOs, if they have any other work that the principals had done to kind of support our teachers and our students with increasing their scores.
I'm happy to speak on behalf of the middle schools. Good evening, President Lopez, Dr. Miguel, board members. We examined as a middle school group the amount of D's and F's at the end of first quarter and progress report time. And several conclusions came out around supporting our students as well as supporting around instruction. For example, one of the things that one of our campuses noticed was that the highest amount of activities and grades not being completed were in the elective courses. Another campus noticed that students had several assignments throughout the week. And so as a result, maybe we should look at math, you give your assignments on this day. So campuses are working through manners in which to address all of these issues. One campus has even now gone to, we need to ensure that whatever work you assign for a grade, it's aligned to a standard. Are we actually measuring what we want the students to learn? I also have another campus, Carl B. Bruce, that's created a new Wednesday schedule in order to meet the needs of students who are struggling. So at the middle school level, all of the campuses are examining that root cause. Why are we having these, and what do we need to do to shift our practice to support our students?
So is that happening? I don't know if you know, I know you're doing middle school, on the elementary level as well as the high school level?
So I can speak to the elementary level. Good evening, President Lopez, Vice President Page, board, and Dr. Miguel. So one of the things that we've spent time with, of course, we did extend that same opportunity for our students to be able to complete some of the missing work as well. But to get to the root cause of it, we wanted to focus on the engagement. We know that for many of our students, there are struggles and challenges when it comes to being able to be on for synchronous learning during the time when the teacher is available. So we do have several schools that they've looked at doing evening sessions and where the teacher is actually available, because we've heard from several families that this is a time when they can be there to monitor the students to make sure that there is sufficient help in the home. So that's just one of the things that we're looking at doing. But today we had a really rich and robust discussion about how to just make the learning come alive for our kiddos, because we know that after being on Zoom for an hour or so, you start to disconnect. And so that's one of the things that we're seeing. So looking forward to January, we're really re-examining how much time we're allocating to our synchronous versus asynchronous learning. And we're hopeful that that will have an impact in the performance of our students going forward.
Okay. And then my second question is for Dr. Bilbo Irving. I heard Ms. Clark say at our last meeting, we need that carrot, we need that thing to get our kids going. And to me, the biggest thing we have is Diploma Plus, especially if you have, to get them to see that they can come out with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. Now, that's not a carrot to jingle. And as a parent, and you don't have to pay for that, and they can get that associate's degree, I don't know what else you can dangle in front of them. That to me is the ultimate thing. And my question, I have two. One, when they withdraw, are they allowed to come back and take more classes if they're not doing well with what they have? Because we're paying almost $500,000. And you did a good job, because we have more kids this past year graduate, get involved, but we want them to be successful. And we do know we're being critiqued by Topeka, and they always want to know how the money is spent, and we want it to be spent wisely. When they withdraw, are they allowed to come back and take even more courses?
I'll answer that question. It is on a student by student basis. You have to have a conversation with your counselor. You have to have a conversation with the college and career facilitator. We're looking at the anecdotal notes from the professors about why the students struggled in the class. We use all that to make a determination of if we'll allow a student to go on and take an additional class. Life circumstances, things happen. Kids have to drop for personal reasons, but they've had a good academic record up until that particular point. So some of those students do get the opportunity to go on, but I will say a lot of students do not get that opportunity to go on if they don't have that record behind them. And then if the notes from the professors deal with absentee, not focusing in class, continuous, that when we've talked to the student about the professor's concerns and the behavior didn't change halfway through the semester. So we have that information on record to be able to help the student make an informed decision about, can you go on? Can you really be successful based on the documentation that we have?
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Page, back to your point about what else can we do to get more kids. That's exactly the conversation that we've been having since analyzing this data. And especially when we compare from campus to campus, the number of students and the differences we see in the number of kids who are taking college classes and those who are not. That is the exact conversation we've been having. What's happening in those schools where there is a very high number, and what can we learn and what can we share with the other campuses? So your question is exactly the question we were discussing this afternoon and in the last few days. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Wynn. I want to thank Dr. Bilbo Irving for providing the information on the college and career, the dual enrollment. Could I take a step back, however? Remind me, please, is there a set criteria for students to be eligible to enroll the first time?
Yes, ma'am. There is a set criteria. Prior to COVID, you had to take the AccuPlacer test and score a 255 or a 242, depending on what class you were enrolling. Since COVID, those measures have changed and students were able to enroll in the class if they had, depending on what course you're taking, a 3.5 or better in your prior English class, or a, say, a 21 on your math ACT, you were able to go into that first level math class. So with COVID, we got different measures for students to get into the class, and the AccuPlacer score we didn't administer because of COVID and not being in the building. So all students that we enrolled for the fall, the majority, I will say 90% of those kids came in under the COVID measures.
Okay, so the data you provided us, did I hear you correctly say those were just only tech courses and not gen ed courses?
Both tech and gen ed, it's combined.
Okay. So, all right. So, are they put on probation like other college students if they don't pass a certain number of classes?
No, ma'am, we don't put the student on probation. At the end, if we withdrew you and you go to the counselor and you want to take another course and you failed a course before, you have to have that conversation about, you failed the course, these are the notes from the professor, you know, what happened that you didn't do well. Again, you could have had something happen at home. It's a bad semester, so we're going to put you on a plan and we can put you in. But for a lot of the students, those notes, those anecdotal notes from the professors that the facilitators keep, we look at those when students don't pass and they want to come back again. So we don't necessarily do probation because we have those notes to say, this is all the information we've gathered when you're in the course and whether we believe you will be able to go on and be successful in the next courses. So if you didn't pass Comp 1, no, you're not going to go to Comp 2 because some of those courses are in sequence. But okay, you didn't do well in Comp 1, you want to try sociology. So there's a conversation to be had and a plan for that student. What will ensure that you're going to do the work and receive a passing grade this next time? And it doesn't always happen.
So do you have data on incompletes?
Well, we don't do incompletes. They don't give us incomplete grades. You withdraw or you get the D or the F. So we don't get any
Oh,
incomplete. Yes, ma'am. No incompletes for our classes.
okay. So why are they allowed to withdraw without parental consent? Or are they allowed to withdraw without parental consent?
They are allowed to withdraw without parental consent. And to answer your question as to why, those are not the procedures that we have in place at this time. We work with the student and the facilitator and the counselor, and that conversation is had. In some cases, the counselor may have reached out to the parent because they see that their grade is failing and you want to pull that kid from that class before they get that D or F. I can't say that that happens at every high school. I will say that those conversations happen the majority of the time with the facilitator, the student, and the counselor.
And I appreciate, and just one more. Did you have a steering committee meeting since the last time you reported to now?
No, ma'am. I sent the information to Ms. Leslie to put in the board docs January 14th. I asked her to send that information to you all.
Okay, thank you. And yes, with your permission, Dr. Miguel, I just one more for, I guess, Ms. Swan.
Yes,
am I to understand that these 6 items, implications for instruction, are you just now taking these steps, or they have been taken in the past?
Many of these have been taken in the past. What is new is the priority standards. Those were identified in November once we got feedback from the field that they felt like there was just so much to teach and they were having issues focusing their content and the time that they had in remote learning. So we took the steps to narrow their focus even a little bit more. We had in our GBCs previous to me coming on board, we had proficiency scales, which had kind of leveraged like some of those priorities, but it wasn't as focused as they needed to be for our remote learning to make sure that we were staying standards-based and that we were helping them identify those high leverage, high mileage standards that our kiddos need to be successful at that grade or in that content. So the priority standards are new. Obviously, we're continue to work on district provided resources, providing the correct professional learning for them around that. A lot of what's listed here, we're talking about what's needed in terms of professional learning moving forward. Some of this has happened, but it's just a more refined focus on what we can do around differentiated instruction. That's just a topic that we need to continue doing work around to help teachers understand how to, provide not just that core instruction, but how we really need to focus on, skill deficits for kiddos and provide some extra time, how to flexibly group kiddos, that kind of thing. So it's really not necessarily that it's a new focus, it's just heightened focus and maybe providing us a little more information on where to take professional learning the next few weeks that we're in remote learning.
Okay, thanks. And so Dr. Miguel, I guess my question to you is what I hear, and I just want to have clarity. Is every campus doing, let's say, their own reevaluation? Is that clear? The question clear?
Student evaluation for student learning, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, what I hear is Mr. Sanders will say at this level, the campus is doing that. Ms. Scott said at this level, the campus is doing that. There is not some coordination for all middle schools, all high schools?
Yes, there is. And what I wanted to add is these 6 bullets that you see on the screen, those are things that we have been doing. So what's new, of course, is the remote learning and, like Darcy said, the priority standards. But these implications for instruction are things that we have been doing. So to think about the evaluation of student learning, I would ask you to look at that number 4. And formative daily assessments have been in place for a while. And it's a practice that we have been refining, and that had we not been in remote learning, we would have been focusing on anyway. Something that we also have in place in all levels is the grade level common assessments, where teachers during their PLC, when they plan, when they do the standards-based planning, they talk about, so how will they know that students have learned it? And they use the common the common assessments that we have in the GVC. And so that I think one of the new, maybe I would say newer focus that we have is the use of district provided resources, because we have those common assessments identified in the GVC. And so we are making sure that teachers are using them. What Matt was sharing earlier was that these two assessments, which are the interims and FastBridge, this first semester, because of all of the changes that we have had to put in place, we made it okay to have them optional so that people did not have the additional stress. But the expectation is that they will be using the assessments in the GVC. For second semester, we're making it a requirement to use every common assessment and to use FastBridge so that we can have that common data point.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Ms. Clark, you have a question that looked like?
I do have just a couple of questions, and again, by no means am I trying to be negative. I just want to make sure that I am following along. So I know the practice of, I'm gonna put Sumner on spotlight just for a moment. I know the practice of Sumner, if you have a child that falls below a certain GPA, you receive a letter, a notification or something. How are parents being notified that their students are not necessarily doing so well? And I heard the presentation tonight, but I'm trying to understand, is there a protocol that basically says your student, no matter what school you're at, is falling below a certain GPA or not doing so well, so that we are hitting every home versus certain homes?
So one of the things in the board policy, which appreciative of that work that you all did last year, is it is a requirement at the 4.5 weeks, and that's just one time, is to give parents that midterm or mid-quarter progress report. So that's one opportunity for us to provide parents or provide families with information about their child's progress. And then I know that Dr. Pitch and the other IAOs, I know that they have other options of what we have, but that is an absolute that has to happen at every school.
That's the common thing we do.
That is the common practices. Every building has to send out the 4.5 week progress report for communication to families. And then IAOs, I'm going to let you speak to if there's any other additional things that some of the sites are doing beyond the requirement.
You know, I would like to speak to the high school, and I would almost presume that the middle school is doing this as well. We are frequently working with the principals with the DNF data. That is a discussion point and a pivot for a plan of action frequently throughout the year. It's not just looked at the progress reports, but we look at it the interims between the progress report and that quarter grade. That information is then taken back to the teams and to the PLCs to do that root cause analysis at the ground level. So it's not simply a reliance just on the progress reports going out. It prompts conversations and actual action and action plans at the campus level, but it does look different at each campus depending on the percentages where they feel like the resources need to be put. Our parents brought into this conversation, and the answer is yes. That is what our BHT teams are for. That is what the campus counselors are for. And there are conversations that happen between counselors and students on a regular basis during each semester where grades are reviewed. It's the topic of the agenda. They do a progress check with the students verbally face to face.
So Dr. Pitch, thank you for that explanation. And this is just a question. By no means am I putting you on the spot. But sure. My question is more around, have we ever looked at procedurally thinking about and communicating with our students in the same manner that we communicate with, and again, I'm picking on Sumner because there's this high alert of text message and phone calls and and I speak from a parent because I get those. However, I feel like with some of our other schools, maybe you don't get that same type of day-to-day of, hey, your child's not doing so well. And so has there ever been a conversation around how do we keep all students, parents on that high alert versus one particular group?
You know, there are, and I think the biggest conversation is how to get the attention the right way with the right form of media. I'll give you an example. So one of the struggles we've had at the high school has been with attendance, getting the kids to get the meaningful contact to come online. What we're finding, even with our best work, I have one campus that's logged over 6,000 calls so far since the beginning of this semester, trying to locate kids and bring them in. Telephone is not working as well as we'd like, and so we're constantly reevaluating. You know, what other methodology can we follow to get parents' attention? Because you know, we know we're having the kids' conversations. We know that we're having the conversations between staff. Now, how can we continue to bring the parents in as part of this? Because you know, we're one leg short on the stool in a lot of cases.
Okay. So when you say
I can add something from. I'm sorry. I can add something from the elementary level.
Can I ask just a quick question? When we say telephone, just as a clarification, when we say telephone, are we talking about a physical phone call or are we talking about a text message?
We are talking about a physical phone call. We require our high schools to log all of their contact attempts because I want it known the efforts that are being played out and the resources being used to try and find these kiddos that will elect not to come to class or to the virtual class. So these are actual phone calls, attempted phone calls with messages left.
I would echo that at the middle school level. Many campuses require their teachers to make phone calls home when students are not progressing.
Okay, and have we tried the text message since we know that that's the kind of the new world?
I would say I think that's something we can continue to explore. I think that's a great idea, Ms. Clark. I think we've been focusing on the phone calls, but you know, I think in the world that we're in right now, sometimes people don't want to talk right at the moment, but they will look at a text message. So that's something the IIOs and myself and the district instructional improvement, our leadership team can discuss.
And I like that idea of having a standard approach to how we communicate with parents, especially if we hear that the way Sumner has been doing it with parents there works. So I'm big on learning from each other. Like I said earlier, looking at what's working at one campus and sharing with the other. So we'll look into that for sure.
I appreciate the conversation. I'm gonna move us along just a little bit. I know we've got a lot more to get through with our presentation, so I apologize for interrupting, but just in the purposes of time, and also to be fair to Mr. Anderson and the rest of the team prepared the rest of the presentation. I will just also acknowledge, I mean, if you have additional questions, please send those along to Dr. Miguel and we can get some answers to that, but just for the purposes of time and moving forward. I also, in the last discussion, I also understand the capacity is also an issue, right? So the capacity to call those parents, those students, and that's also an issue. So I know our staff is overworked, and so not an excuse, but I also understand that it's a capacity issue. So anyways, with that, I will ask Mr. Anderson if you can continue to move forward with the presentation.
Absolutely. And so just to board, as a reminder, moving forward, we're going to continue to give student achievement updates, and we will give you one in February because we will have taken the FAST Bridge again, and we want to keep you updated on student achievement. So just giving you that information up ahead. So we had some great presenters this morning, this evening earlier. Ms. Guess and Ms. Stewart talked about the wraparound services that their buildings are providing to their students. And so what we wanted to do was have Ms. Lisa Garcia Stewart share with you what's some of the information we've gathered around wraparound services that we're providing as a district. So Ms. Garcia Stewart, if you would share just a little bit, please, that'd be great.
Good evening. Good evening, President Lopez, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to share just additional information in addition to what both building administrators shared. Our wraparound services, I had the privilege of sharing some of that information at a previous board meeting, and again, in collaboration with nutritional services and the transportation department, our behavioral health social workers have connected with families to really remove those barriers to provide meal pickup and home delivered meals. And currently they have provided around 3,200 meals delivered to the home Wednesday and Friday. Our behavioral health social workers continue to focus on the priority of our students' mental health and well-being. They have completed 40 student assessments since the start of the school year. These assessments have been primarily done in person and can be provided virtually using a confidential Zoom link. But again, making those connections with our students and making sure that they are staying safe in this time that we are in remote learning. To date, our behavioral health social workers have provided 147,290 minutes of services to students so far just in the school year. We haven't completed the first semester, so I look forward to coming back and continuing to share those updated service minutes. Our social workers and counselors have responded. At the time of this presentation, it was 19. Unfortunately, I do have to share that we have had 21 times that we've had to respond to student deaths in the district. So just wanted to provide that update total that we have just in the last couple of weeks. Our behavioral social workers work closely with community partners. Our Wyandotte Behavioral Health Center, which the juvenile side of that is PACES, Vibrant Health, and other essential programs to ensure that we're meeting the basic needs of mental health are currently met. And you heard much of that shared by two amazing building administrators today. Our social workers and counselors continue to collaborate with building leaders. You heard Mrs. Guest talk about the behavioral team, but really is to drill down to the root cause analysis to provide interventions for the students that are at the highest need at that time. It continually can evolve, and really assure that they are developing a way and approach through social media platforms, classrooms, to collectively share information and deliver that one-on-one. And you also heard that when we talked about counselors providing those guidance lessons. We also have amazing family and community engagement specialists. Our Kids Zone staff and the Department of Student Services have been connecting with the students that were receiving services prior to the pandemic by creating Kids Zone on the go, STEM activities, calling parents and connecting with them. And certainly this is not everything from every school. This is just a really high level overview of all of the work that's happening.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia Stewart. Next, we'll have Dr. Lori and Miss Jackie Rodriguez share about where we are with special education and ESOL. As you know, we do have students that are doing some in-person services. So Dr. Lori, we'll start with you.
Yes, good evening, Board President Lopez, Vice President Page, the board, Dr. Miguel. I want to share an update. This past week, we started to bring in our students with our high needs. As you see there on the screen, we have identified these are the sites that have been receiving students. We have been able to serve in our first week 34 students. We are continuing to bring in students to test them for initial evaluations. And so far to date, since we initiated this at the end of October, we have tested 114 students. I just want to take a moment to thank some nutritional services and the transportation services, because that first week was a little bumpy, but we have been meeting. They were able to work through some things, and we're going to have even more students to join us by the end of the week. Right now, we have about 23 staff members, and that's going to be teachers and paraprofessionals that are showing up to work and committed to serving our students in our programs. And I just want to thank those students. Had an opportunity that first week to go out and actually see our students in the classrooms. They had their mask on, they had their desk shields up on their desk. The teachers had their mask on, their face shields. And although there was some anxiety there, I had a teacher tell me she couldn't sleep the whole night before. But when she saw those kids come off that bus, they started to feel like, we know this is the right work, and we know that we have to provide this support and services to our students. So I want to thank the building leaders, working with their staff through some of these anxieties. But we are continuing to move forward to serve this great population of students. Our next phase is due to return on January 11th. That is our CELS 2 and our CELS 1 students. We will have a week once we return from break where staff will have a time to prepare their classrooms, go through the health orientation with Elizabeth Morris, and to have any questions asked and answered that week before we bring students back. So that's where we are right now with serving our students with our high needs.
Thank you, Dr. Lori. Next, we're going to move on to Ms. Jackie Rodriguez for an ESOL update.
Good evening, President Lopez, Vice President Page, Board, and Dr. Miguel. We have successfully had students in since November 16th, and now we are on to phase 2. The students are coming in 4 days a week at our 3 different sites, Eugene, Ware, Central, and Washington. I've had the pleasure to visit virtually 2 of our sites and in person at Central this week to see instruction. As Dr. Lowry has indicated, our teachers are following all the protocols. The students are really showing some growth within their language progression, and now have also had increased attendance for their afternoon sessions. The teachers have articulated how overjoyed they are to be with the students in the classroom. While this says we've been able to test 275 students, at this time when I pulled numbers this morning, we've tested 301 students for ESL services in person and also remotely as of November 16th to ensure that we follow guidelines by the state and that our students are receiving the proper scaffolds within instruction based on their language. And then our advocates, our outreach workers, and as Vanessa Mora indicated, we're also facilitating parent support within our Saturday Academy. And that has reaped a lot of benefit to our families, increasing communication with that wraparound services in person, also providing other language supports. A lot of our buildings use Talking Points, so that is a text messaging kind of app that our ESL teachers are utilizing to access families who speak other languages. And that's kind of all of our updates for ESL.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I know this will seem a little different, but we're going to give you just a quick update on students' last day. In August, we brought to you, or July, we brought to you the calendar adjustments that needed to be made to get into this remote learning. So we're currently set for a last day for students on Thursday, May 27th, 2021. And that meets the KSD requirements of the number of seat hours of 1,116. One thing we did want to update you on is that the seniors' last day, because their seat hours are a little less at 1086, their tentative last day is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. And along with the last day, we know comes the excitement for graduation. And so we wanted to give you a brief update on where we are with our graduation dates and times so the board can plan accordingly as we move forward. So I'm going to have Dr. Troy Pitch and Mrs. Lisa Garcia Stewart just briefly touch on our update on graduation dates and times.
Good evening again, members of the board. Just wanted to highlight what we're doing with graduation. We know that's coming up, and last year's was really hard. So we wanted to start thinking now about what that might look like. And we wanted to get these placeholder dates in for our families so that they could go ahead and mark them on the calendars. So if you'll take a look, Thursday we have Washington, Friday Bridges, and then we do Wyandotte on the weekend, Schlegel, Sumner, Reach, and Harmon. Ms. Garcia and I met with the principals and reviewed the calendars to determine which of these dates would be feasible for which campuses, of course, allowing for the board meeting during that week as well. We are not prepared to say specifically what graduation looks like because we certainly can't predict that far down the road with the way things have been changing, but we are building plans for a couple different contingencies. Will we still be remote? Will we be allowed to be in person? If so, what would that look like? So I want you to know that the principals and Ms. Garcia and I have already started to work on this, and we realize that the very next important phase is to start talking with the students and their families to see what they would like to see happen, and pull all that together again with a little bit more advance notice than March or April that everything is different now.
Ms. Garcia Stewart, do you have anything to share, or should I move on?
No, I think move on. I think sharing the dates and knowing we're working through logistics for different plans.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sorry. So we do have a quick athletic update. And so I'm going to have Miss Tammy Ronstadt, if you could briefly share an update on athletics.
Good evening, President Lopez, members of the board, Dr. Miguel. In regards to athletics within the district, we're currently still on track with the proposal with pushing the delayed start date for January for our winter sports. During this time, we've also reached out to Pix-A-Lot, who is a live stream platform that this year is working with several of the districts around us and really throughout the country and providing cameras so that games can be live streamed. They have a 5-year agreement. They'll provide us cameras at each of our gymnasiums. This is high school, each of the gymnasiums, each of the stadiums, football stadiums. And they'll also provide the install cost. And in return, they'd like us to sign an agreement for 5 years. Cost to us, if we choose, and this year I'm suggesting we do since we are limiting to no spectators, the cost for us this year is a $1,500 cost per school that can be absorbed into my budget for this year since we're not having spectators for parents to watch or families. Going forward, in the next 4 years of the agreement, we would have the opportunity to, it'll be a different cost at $4,000 per school for a full year, because this year we're in half of a school year left. Or families could purchase the viewing at their own cost at $10 a month. There's no required involvement of the school to pay. We could look at it yearly. The KCKPS update, they have made a few changes in just allowing a couple of participants or guardians or parent per participant, but they are aligning with us along the no Christmas practices. And they are allowing games at this point with a start back on January 8th. Doesn't change anything that we're currently doing in the district.
Thank you, Ms. Ronstadt. And just a reminder to the board, this is not an action item for this evening. This is just to give you an update on how we could move forward with the Pix-A-Lot. So it gives you some information to think about.
Matt, I did want to clarify that there is no cost for the installation of the cameras, that the agreement is for just to say we're going to use it, but there is no cost to the district for that. The only cost that we would have is if we choose to stream once we come back next year, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Now we'll have Ms. Lenora Miller give us a brief update on our meal participation with the changes that occurred from last meeting.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what it looks like now since we did a temporary consolidation of our meal participation sites. We are continuing to serve the same average of meals as we did before. And so in all honesty, we actually gained about 454 average of meals at these sites that are now have remained open. So here's a snapshot of the sites that are currently open and how many meals they gained at each site, absorbing some of those smaller sites that we had to consolidate. So just a quick update.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Just a brief Canvas update. You know, we brought to your attention that we've had some concerns about moving so fast with this. So we're not pausing our use of Canvas. We are going to do a parallel usage of Canvas with what we're currently using so we can really focus in on that high quality instruction that we discussed earlier in our presentation. So one of the things that we will ask the teachers to do is continue to use the learning management system that they are most comfortable with, but also asking that we continue to learn about the learning management system, get in, try it out, provide that professional learning time to do that. So teachers are fully prepared to move over completely to in the 21-22 school year. And so on this slide, you can just see a timeline of how that will all work out over the next few months as we move forward. Next, we're going to quickly talk about connectivity, and we know Mr. Dennis Covington is going to be bringing an item to you as well, but I'm going to have one of the IIOs just briefly share with us where are we on our connectivity issues with students.
Good evening again, board. We understand that the information from a survey that we put out to our building leaders was shared with you. We just wanted to consolidate some of the information. So as you see, about 491 of our students are facing connectivity issues as a whole, even with a district provided hotspot. And then about 1,335 of our students are unable to engage because of unstable or unreliable connectivity. And that makes an issue for them to be able to connect and engage in the learning. So on average, about 45 of our families are accessing our connectivity hubs that have been established in our campuses. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pitch.
Okay, and again, thank you, esteemed members of the board. I get to highlight what we're doing with this data. And you know, when we started out with connectivity hubs, as with a lot of things, we were conservative because we have to consider what things might happen. How do we protect everybody? How do we make it work the very best? And looking at this data and talking with our principals, we're continuing to analyze what can we do differently, what these can we loosen up on a little bit. So in this case, an example would be at the high school level, we have required high school students in order to participate in the connectivity. The expectation of the district was that all students were accompanied by a parent. So at the high school moving forward, we're going to roll back that and say our high school kids are mature enough to come and use a connectivity hub under supervision without having to bring a parent. We saw that as a very clear barrier. And so what I'm highlighting is this continually evolving effort to try and figure out what works in this remote learning environment. Another issue with connectivity hubs, I'm going to pass on to Mr. Dennis Covington, who's going to talk about some adjustments we're going to make specifically with those pieces of technology. Dennis?
Oh, well, before Dennis, I would hate to do this to you, but I'm sorry. I have one item before that. And this is the end of our presentation. However, this takes us back to grades for just a moment. One of the things the board policy requires that every teacher put in at least one grade every week for their students. One of the things that we're noticing and getting a lot of feedback on, and I think some board members, you are also receiving this feedback as well, is that the amount of grades that a specialist teacher at the elementary level would have to put in is substantially higher than a lot of other teachers. Some of our specialist teachers can have up to 500 students that they see in a week. And so that would require them to put 500 grades in within the week. And so something that we've really thought about is the amount of time that they spend with content with students. Many of our specialist teachers either see their kids at least only once a week. Sometimes they see them twice, but the total amount of time they see them twice is 25 minutes each, which is 50, and then maybe 60 minutes at most. So they only see their students for an hour a day. And so that doesn't give them as much time to engage with the content and the learning as perhaps they would in the classroom. And so something that we're recommending to the board is that for the time being, until further notice, we're recommending that the weekly grade submission for our elementary specialist teachers requirement be suspended for just a moment. And then we can consider this maybe working out board policy to include this language later. But for now, allowing our specialist teachers to submit a grade every other week, which would equate to 4 to 5 grades per student per quarter. So that is our recommendation tonight and asking for board action on that.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Yeager.
Oh, Matt, thank you for the explanation. I think we didn't think about specials when we had made that policy in particular, but if it is something that will help our teachers be able to serve our students more efficiently, I want to make a motion that we accept the recommendation for the elementary specials grades of suspending that requirement for elementary specials until further research has been available.
Seconded.
I have a question. Now, he did have at the end, and it needs to be clear because people are taking us literally, that at the end it said that they would submit 4 to 5 grades. Let's make sure we add that so there's no misunderstanding about what they need to do.
Okay, so friendly amendment to specify that grades will be entered every other week, which would equate to 4 to 5 grades per student per quarter.
Yeah.
Second, do I need to second that for the?
I seconded it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Ms. Page.
Matt and Dr. Miguel, is that the language that it should be?
If you want to, yeah, Dr. Miguel, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that's why we worded it like this, so that if you chose, you could just take the language from the recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts? If not, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark,
Wanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And before we move on with Mr. Covington and his presentation, I just want to pause really quick and take a few minutes. I know there was a lot of information presented there after the data piece, so I do want to provide some space for any questions from board members regarding anything we just were presented by Mr. Anderson and the team.
This is Dr. Nguyen. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
When you and your team this summer presented made the pitch to purchase Canvas, there was I'll just say there was it appeared that there was an argument that it would not be a problem, that it was easy to work with, and it was just, we just had to buy it. Now, one, how much money did we spend? And number two, you're in essence, how many teachers are using it?
So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I can get those to you, and I can get those run
to the board, not just to me.
Yes, to the board. Yes, sorry about that. We can get that to the board to allow you to see how many teachers are using it as primary learning management system. We will also give you, it can hopefully get the report to show you how many teachers are actually in the system working through and adding in some of the content.
So my real question is, what happened? So what did you guys not study it properly? Or teachers what happened?
I will say this, time was of the essence, and time did not do us well. One of the things that happened when we had the contract signed by Mr. Lopez, it went back and forth at least for 2 to 3 weeks after you all had signed it, which pushed our timeline back significantly. And it caused a huge disruption in the amount of time we were able to work with teachers up front. So in all honesty, that is where a lot of the issue came in. We also, we adopted a lot of things last year based on our curriculum resources being out of date. We needed a universal screener, and we definitely needed a learning management system. And so all of these things on top of them, it's caused some headaches.
So what was the cost of this first year?
I believe it was a little over 100,000.
And when do you plan to fully implement it?
Our full implementation will be at the beginning of next year.
January or fall 21.
Fall 2021.
So we've blown this year. One could consider we have blown this year.
We consider it that way, or we could say we're taking this year to parallel, which is what we didn't do with Infinite Campus when we purchased that a few years ago. we went full force, and we noticed the repercussions of that. And that's why we went ahead and did a parallel running of the two systems.
Right, but that was not the way it was presented. This is what I'm concerned about. You all, and I'm not saying you didn't do your homework, but the way it was presented, it was easy to roll out. And now one could consider we have not fully utilized the $100,000 of taxpayers' money for this learning management system.
I would just also add, Dr. and I respect that, but I would just say that it has been a different year with COVID and the pandemic, and really trying to implement a system like that in addition to everything else we're doing. I think I agree the implementation was not how we were hoping, but I also want to give our staff a little bit of grace regarding the implementation, the delay, the pandemic, and everything else that we're trying to put through and put in motion. So
okay, let me suggest to you, I'm not attacking anyone.
No,
but for someone who teaches online classes, this is what I'm saying. Almost every, I'll just say every school district now is remote. But I'm just suggesting the manner in which it was presented to us, perhaps someone did not take in consideration. So I don't discount what you said, but I'm not going to back up either from the fact that the manner in which it was presented, that the taxpayer could say that $100,000 did not roll out as it was expected, pandemic or whatever. So thank you.
Thank you. I think there were a lot of things that haven't been
right.
implemented.
And Randy, I would also add that if a taxpayer is watching this and think that everything was going to be like it was pre-pandemic, when we look at assessment and we think about how Infinite Campus came out and the lack of parallel ability to do that, I would fully agree that this year is not a waste. Any IT person, any person who is used to doing transitions over and over will tell you when there's a parallel of two programs of being able to use both until you're comfortable, it's easier to roll out and have that acceptance than just rolling it out full throttle and removing the other one. So I would not consider this a waste. I think this is and the way it was presented, Matt advised us, if I recall, that there wouldn't be just Canvas and take away the other. There was a plan in place to do them parallel so that there would be appropriate copying of data so that teachers could get used to it. So I think it's very important that there's not an understanding of the interpretation was not present. It was presented to us that, again, it wasn't going to be the same way that we wrote out Infinite Campus. It would be more strategic. And I appreciate the strategic methods that are being used so that teachers can feel more comfortable and confident when it is fully rolled out.
And we will take it, I'll embrace the idea that we are also taking it as a learning year for Canvas. When we adopted FastBridge and the curriculum resources, we didn't know there was going to be a pandemic. So we didn't know that we were going to have to learn how to do almost everything we did. It was just going to be the new resources and FastBridge. And then COVID happened. And then we realized the importance of having a management learning system, which, if you will, we should have had in place, but we didn't. So that was one thing that we needed to adopt. And Dr. Wynn, I will admit, maybe we were a little too optimistic about how easy it was going to be to roll it out. And we want to embrace that. And I would not say that we wasted the taxpayers' money, because we are using it. We are learning, and it's a system that we will continue to use for years to come, because we have had lots of conversations of what things are we going to keep from this remote learning that will enhance the learning from now on. Yeah, we're not where we want it to be, but I think we're learning a little bit every day.
Well, Dr. Miguel, I can appreciate your reception And that's what is so interesting. Instead of people getting defensive and tensing up, I appreciate the manner in which you receive constructive criticism in the spirit that is provided, not attacking. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just because I just want to add on there publicly, we have adapted to some other systems in the pandemic. And so I think it's good that this conversation happens so that everyone is on the same page. You think about Flyer or something, I can't think of the name of it. So for someone that doesn't necessarily have a different type of background, there just may be questions about all the different systems that are being adopted. So I think the public deserves to know and have that understanding.
Sure, and we will come back with a number of teachers who are using it fully, partially, how much it actually costs. So we will make, I will share it with the board on my Friday update, but we will bring it back to the meeting because we want everyone to know. I mean, it's not something, this is in everybody's best interest. So I appreciate everybody's feedback on this.
And Mr. Lopez, I think we need to make sure everybody knows how to use Infinite Campus. There was still people struggling with that. At least parents were struggling. Some of them hadn't mastered it. So we need to make sure we have these systems that everybody knows how to utilize. That's all I'm saying. Because people did struggle. I went to some meetings at Sumner and parents were concerned about that. That was at the beginning, so in the fall. So we want to make sure everybody can utilize everything. We're paying the money. We got to make sure it works.
We will.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you for that good conversation.
I have a comment. And again, I don't want this to be taken. I'm always taken the wrong way. And I'm not saying it nasty. I keep getting these emails. And this is for Dr. Lori, where some of the people in the SPED department claim they're not getting the proper medical grade PPE. This is what they said. I didn't say it. So if there's some way they can talk to people so they can get a clear understanding about the equipment and to make sure everybody has what they need. In addition to a couple of people claim that people who were supposed to be meeting with them weren't showing up to the meetings. So again, this is what was said. I didn't say that it's gospel, it's true, but I think they need to talk to make sure everybody's on one accord.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, there was a communication that came out directly from me to all the building leaders that was shared with teachers and paraprofessionals about the acceptable PPE to wear during this time while servicing our students who are returning back to buildings. So that was clearly communicated. Elizabeth Morris conducted a health orientation the week before we even brought students back to kind of go over some of those things. And she could definitely speak more about that piece, but there was a communication about those expectations. But to that point, there has been lots of changes over the course of time of planning. And there were conversations about industrial grade versus medical grades and those things. But since the most recent data and that communication that I sent out most recently before we brought students back, it was clearly defined on what the expectations were for PPE. So any emails that I'm getting, I am definitely addressing and trying to bring some understanding about that.
Okay, and I just wanted you to say that because they're telling us this. And again, ma'am, I haven't been there. I don't know. I'm taking you at your word. I just thought maybe if they could hear you say it and they heard it out loud, and I didn't want them to think we're not trying to address their issues.
Absolutely.
But they're making these accusations and for you to respond. So that way everybody hears it. It's not a surprise. And you strike me as a very decent person and you want what's best for the kids. So we got to work it out.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And as usual, Ms. Page, I would encourage staff or parents to contact us directly. I want them to know our email, is public information, our phone number, that if anyone has received an email from me, they have my cell phone number at the bottom. So we welcome the phone calls, we welcome the emails. So please let them know.
This is Dr. Wynn again. Dr. Lori, how many SPED students will be on campus next week?
Well, we're still working out some medical releases, but we're anticipating maybe a couple more students will come on. But right now we have 34 as of the end of our first week.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Miguel, in anticipation of Mr. Covington coming and in coordination with Ms. Ronstadt's report, you guys have never told us about the LED lights. The $4 million contract.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The LED lights are being replaced in the gymnasium, weren't they? Mr. Covington probably knows.
Yeah, Mr. Covington.
Since he's going to speak anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe he can address that. Thank you. Are we ready for the next, or are there any other questions?
Other questions from board members before we move forward? Thank you, Mr. Anderson and team, for that information. A lot to go through, but we appreciate the time it takes. And it's important, right? Important conversation. Again, board members, please, I know there were a lot of questions that we might still have or that we want to follow up on. And please, let's do that because the conversation doesn't stop here. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Matt.
Happy holidays to you.
So next up is Mr. Covington with a recommendation to approve removing the data caps on 4,200 student hotspots. And as you know, we have been looking at what's getting in the way of students accessing learning and being able to complete their lessons and submit their assignments. And one thing that was brought to our attention was the fact that hotspots have a cap, a data cap, and when the data is exhausted, then they have to wait until it resets, which is once a month. So depending on the number of videos and the volume of activities that they have, the synchronous time, it could very easily be that for a half a month, the student has no data to complete assignments or attend class. So we started talking about what would be a way to remedy that and to ensure that when we say that we provide hotspots for students, we're not just providing the hardware, but we're also providing the ability to truly access lessons every single day. So Mr. Covington is going to share with you a little bit more information about that. You're muted, Mr. Covington. You're muted, Mr. Covington. We can't hear you. Can you hear us, Mr. Covington? So while Mr. Covington tries to resolve the issue of sound, Mr. Hoda, do you have the numbers that we were going to bring? He disconnected, so he may be coming back, and that may help.
So the numbers that Mr. Covington is going to bring is we paid $15 for each hotspot a month for 10 gig data cap. To remove the data cap, it'll cost $7 $8.99 per hotspot to go from 10 gigs to unlimited. And we purchased a total of 4,200 hotspots. So it'll be 4,200 times $8 a month, basically, for the remaining 5 months or so. So I think that number came out to, if I remember correctly, like $165,000.
But that is the total if we have to use it every for the remainder of the school year. So what we calculated was that it would be approximately $34,000 a month. So let's say students come back at the end of, or at the beginning of April, like we have planned, then we wouldn't have to pay for that last month for April and May. So it would be at a maximum $168,000. It could be less, but that will allow students to fully access classes all the time, to fully connect anytime they need to connect, whether it be for classes, to submit assignments, to watch videos during asynchronous time. Sometimes some of the time spent at home, not necessarily in class, maybe to watch a video and to then complete an assignment and submit it. And we know that for many of these students, that is what's getting in the way of submitting the assignments and actually even attending class at times.
Okay, can you all hear me now?
Yes. We did all your part already.
Had to log out and log back in. I did hear what Rashid and Dr. Miguel answered, which was the cost of the hotspots. But let's talk about how we could fund them. As you all know, when we presented the budget way back in August, there was some question as to whether we would receive the total budgeted revenue. And we still don't have that answered yet. And also I sent you all a spreadsheet of the CARES funding as it is now, with us paying the beyond bonus and set aside for the nutritional services piece and the custodial staff that we had planned to use CARES funding for if we didn't get the total 5.2 million.
Mr. Covington, would you like me to share that spreadsheet?
That will be fine. So as you can see, we have set aside $1.5 million to cover the custodials' salaries if we did not receive the total $5.2 million. The last report that we had gotten from the state, it was favorable, but we still do not know without any uncertainty that we will receive the 5.2 million. So the proposal tonight is that we go ahead and spend the $168,000 out of the 1.5 for the custodial staff. And if for some reason we don't receive the 5.2 million, that those dollars would, for the hotspots, would then be charged to our contingency funds. But the contingency funding will be the last resort before, as we exhaust all of the funding options. But we would like to go ahead and get the caps removed, and that is our proposal.
And we would like to do it sooner rather than later, so that when we come back from break, kids already have that data cap removed and can fully take advantage of what we're offering remotely.
I have a quick question, and I don't have a problem with what he just said, but whatever happened to Spectrum? That's a no deal, that's not going to happen at all? So just a quick yes or no, it's not going to happen?
No. It's not a dead issue. We are waiting to see if the state adds additional funding to that program for the next semester, and we will apply for that grant directly to us and not through the vendor.
Okay.
So,
but let me say this, in the bill that's before Congress right now, being discussed, there's I think it's $6 billion in that bill to address school connectivity. So it looks very favorable that states will get additional funding for connectivity. And if that's been the case, these dollars then will be charged to that funding, and it wasn't be charged to contingency.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis, this will start with the January cycle, not the December cycle.
Yes, the January cycle.
Okay.
And it's $33,500 a month for the 4,200 units.
I make a motion that we accept the proposal to have the caps removed for our hotspot in order to give our children access.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further questions or discussion from the board? Not. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Wanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Covington, Mr. Holder, Dr. Miguel. I will just say, I know Ms. Crystal Watson with the foundation also serves on I think on a committee around connectivity in the metro area. So she might have some insight on potential grant dollars available to support that. And so let's exhaust every opportunity that exists in our metro and nationally to see what we can do to help support our students with connectivity as we continue to move forward. So thanks for looking into that.
Mr. Lopez.
Yeah.
Let me answer Dr. Nguyen's question on the lights. We should be about 90 to 95% complete on the lights. We ran into some issues that some of our apparatuses was so old that we had to rethink how we were going to install the new lights, but that was at no additional cost to the district. So I'll give you an update. I'll give, unless Doug, if you have any other update on the lighting.
Just, yeah, you're pretty much spot on, Dennis. Good evening, everybody. The lighting contractor they've got really just a handful of schools left to go through. They've been working at Mark Twain, McKinley. They're at Rosedale today. Tomorrow, they're going to start doing the big gym at Wyandotte, which presents a very real challenge on how to get up to those lights. So they'll be working on those through Sunday. And then they're going to start going back and getting some of those issues that Dennis was talking about.
Well, good, because with us being on remote gave them full reign. They didn't have to do nights and weekends.
Well, we actually did put some restrictions on them, Dr. Nguyen. You know, there were still some issues with teachers being in the buildings and other staff. And frankly, you know, as far as making sure they wore their mask and followed the protocols, we asked them to work specific hours, 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's what they've been doing.
Great. Well, thank you. And Randy, Mr. Lopez, I think Ms. Rodriguez was on I mentioned this back when the Spectrum people were here. The Greater Kansas City Chamber had a webinar about connectivity and foundations. And so she was a presenter, if I had the right person. Probably could be wrong name, but one of our kindergarten teachers. And so there's conversation in Kansas, Missouri. I don't know why we haven't tapped them for additional support.
Thanks, Dr. I'll look into that. Appreciate it. Okay. With that, we will continue on with our agenda, which that was the last item on our agenda. Before we adjourn, if you would just indulge me, or Dr. Miguel, anything before we close that you have to report?
Just to wish everyone happy holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate. Hopefully, if you get a break, take the break, connect with family virtually and family and friends virtually, hopefully. But take some time to focus on yourself, on your family. Read a good book if you like to read, but relax, because when we come back in January, we're going to be full force again, re-energized, ready to continue teaching and learning. So take care of yourselves. Please stay healthy. We need everyone healthy and ready to come back. Just enjoy the break and enjoy the holidays. We all need it.
Dr. Miguel, can you remind our students when their last day of school is?
The last day of school is Tuesday. And I don't think they need a reminder. They keep track of that. So we have school Monday and Tuesday. And so after that, they are on break. And then we come back on January 3rd, I believe, or 4th, Matt, 4th.
January 4th. Everybody's coming back January 4th. Yes.
That may be the reminder that they need. So maybe I need to rephrase my question. Can you remind our students when to come back?
Monday, January 4th.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you, Ms. Clark, for that. If you'll indulge me just quick, I just want to say as we close out the calendar year, I just want to take a brief moment to acknowledge that, this year has really tested us all. Mm-hmm. And saying that there have been challenges for us, for our staff, for our students, it's really an understatement. As we continue to see people get sick and die, as we continue to learn remotely, as we continue to go through the unknowns, the fear, the anxiety, the stress. In many ways, I think we're all just trying to survive, and that shouldn't get lost on any of us. Mm-hmm. But I also want to say that I take comfort in knowing that we're in this together. And I'm mindful that we're guided by values of hope, peace, joy, and love, especially in this season. Our teachers are working so hard for our students. Our custodians are working so hard to keep us safe and clean. Our nutrition workers are keeping our families fed. Our counselors are supporting families in ways that we never imagined, and so much more. And we all play such an integral role in all of this work. And I know we're doing this together. And I just want to say that I'm so proud of our students and of our families. I'm so proud of our staff at all levels. And I'm so proud to work alongside Dr. Miguel and all of you, my board colleagues and friends, to do our best to support our district and families. And as we continue in this journey, let's all do our part, wear our masks, social distance, and take care and love each other. We're going to overcome these challenges. I promise you, and we're going to be stronger for it. And we're going to continue to inspire excellence, every child, every grown-up, every day. So I just want to say that I couldn't be more proud of all of you. And I just want to wish all of you a very happy and safe holiday, happy new year. Los apreciamos a todos y a todos ustedes y queremos que todos tengan un feliz Navidad, prospero año. And we will see you at our next board meeting. Don't forget our community town hall start the first week of January 5th. And our first official board meeting of January will be on January 12th. So again, thank you all. So proud of you and all the work you're doing, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.